back. You are listening to You Would Think, the Philadelphia Flyers podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Collington, and ladies and gentlemen, friends, family, fans of You Would Think, we have a fun one for you today. It is episode number 100, and I am joined at first by the one, the only Mr. Kevin Durso. How are you?
Great as always. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. It's great having you here. Kevin's been with me for a while, but before Kevin, there was another. At the beginning, the birth of this show, it was me and the man who is still known as Producer Mike to this day. It is Mr. Mike Giletto joining us for the first time in a very long time. How are you, buddy?
What's up, buddy? I'm excited. It's been a while.
It's good to have. It's good to have you back. It's got that feel of nostalgia, and it's perfect for episode number 100. But wait, that's not all.
There's more.
It's not just Kevin and Mike. This man has been here several times. He is a friend of the show. He doesn't always have the best mic quality. He doesn't always have the best takes. He doesn't always have the best jokes, but we keep inviting him here anyway. Dom Console, how are you, buddy?
Hello.
Sorry, I didn't mean to roast you that hard in the intro. That wasn't
okay.
That wasn't the plan. I kind of
That's
just
a
went off the
holiday
cuff
miracle.
there.
It's a holiday miracle.
It is a holiday miracle. We are recording this episode a couple of days before Christmas. I believe Hanukkah just wrapped up. I'm going to wish everybody a happy holidays right here at the top of the show, and I'm sure we'll do so at the end as well.
It's on the board behind me too.
Yeah, we have plenty of stuff on Kevin's
I almost
board.
can't fit everything on the. I can't even fit everything on the board.
Gotta get a bigger board.
And speaking of not fitting everything in, we have a very long show.
Yeah,
this one's probably going to be a long one. It's episode number 100. We're doing a little bit of a spectacular here. We made several calls. Dom's on the move throughout his house.
Sorry,
if you're
I have
watching
to
on
plug
the
my
YouTube
charger
channel. His laptop's dying. He's not prepared. This is why we don't invite him more often.
It's exactly why.
But we're just going to dive right into it. Big story, top of the day. It looks like the NHL is definitely going to come back. I'm willing to call it set in stone at this point. Obviously, we still have things that need to be worked out and announced, but Pierre LeBrun has had a very, very good week on Twitter. Kevin, why don't you tell us about some of the things that are going on here?
That felt like a carbon copy of last show where we talked about Pierre LeBrun in the first minute of the show. I get it.
The man has it. If the man has it,
he did not have it first. The biggest drop of all, which was the agreement.
Okay,
that was Elliot Friedman had that.
Okay.
Elliot Friedman told us we were getting hockey back.
That's fair.
Let's be clear.
But Pierre has had a lot.
He has had a lot. Now, I feel like what I need to do to start with all this is go kind of back to the 2 weeks ago, because what we talked about 2 weeks ago was the economics of it, the money aspect, how that was holding some things up, and that was kind of becoming a concern, but told everybody not to worry, don't think lockout yet, like don't think like that and stuff like that. And within, I guess, about a week or so, they pushed the economics aside. They came to an agreement on keeping that in structure, but then you're sitting there going, what's next? Are you close to anything else? And finally, Friday of this week, we got that news. We got that news drop that the league is coming back. They have a tentative agreement. They're going to be voting in a couple of days. I think the NHL Board of Governors is voting today, Sunday, as we record. I think by Monday, they hope to have everything else finalized. And there's a lot of stuff we know. There's a lot of stuff that's got question marks next to it. January 13th is the goal date. That seems to be pretty well confirmed, barring any other setbacks.
Yeah, there are some things we know are set in stone. January 13th is kind of one of them.
It is a 56-game schedule. Again, barring any setbacks and anything throughout the year that comes up. There will be no preseason games. Training camps are starting on December 31st for the 7 teams that weren't in the playoffs, January 3rd for the rest of them. There is going to be realignment in some capacity. We're told there will be a Canadian division, an all-Canadian division. The question mark is, where are they going to play? How are they going to play? Will they be able to play in their home buildings? Vancouver is the question mark here. I already mentioned the meetings that are going on today with the Board of Governors, GM's call. Opt-out date for players, if they want to opt out for the season, is December 24th for non-playoff teams, December 27th for the rest. The end of the regular season is expected May 8th. The final day of the playoffs potentially is July 15th. Expansion draft is July 21st. NHL draft July 23rd and 24th, free agency July 25th, and I already need a break after talking about that.
Yep. And
hey guys, that's it. Wrap up. Let's go.
Yep. And basically, we talked about it a little bit before the show. We're basically going to come back after the new year with weekly episodes, and it certainly sounds like they're going to be nonstop until July at this point.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of details within some of those things too. The opt-out, if players do choose to opt out, and obviously we'll see who decides to and who doesn't in the coming weeks. But they wouldn't lose. Teams have the option to make them not lose the contract year. So if someone has a 3-year deal or 3 years left on their deal and they say, I don't want to play, they still have 3 years left on their deal. It just carries over. The roster construction is going to be really interesting. And the idea is that you're going to have 23 players on your active roster. You can have 4 to 6 on your taxi squad, which is AHL level players or AHL contracts that you can supposedly call up at any time. They're working on changing the emergency call-up status, so it's easier to get a guy up there when you need him in a moment's notice.
They're going to be flexible.
I just saw come in this morning, training camp will be 36 skaters and unlimited goalies. So that's so you're not really cutting that many if you're trying to get to the 29 player.
All right, Mike, pull out the goalie pads. Unlimited goalies.
Yep, I got it.
I know a guy with the Flyers.
Street hockey when I was like 11 years old, so it's all right. We'll be all right.
Yeah.
Fine.
So, I mean, but it was funny because there was a lot of news early the previous week, and then we kind of just did the same thing we did over Thanksgiving, which was sit there and kind of go, what's going on? And I will tell you, I had serious doubts that we were going to have this news in time for this show, and possibly in time for Christmas.
Yep. As
it went on. Like, really, I started to think there was no way we were going to have anything like this to talk about.
That would have been a year without a Santa Claus type stuff, man. That would have been a very sad.
I like
Christmas
the reference.
indeed.
I appreciate the reference. And here's something else too. I do want to clarify something that I had said on last show that we kind of discussed because we took it in a direction that I didn't intend to take it because I misspoke. Because I talked about how don't blame Gary Bettman for the problems going on. And you said, well, he's always the fall guy. What I meant to say was I saw a lot of people blaming him for the shortened season. You can't fault him for a shortened season at all. You kind of knew it was inevitable. So
again, with that July hard out for the Olympics, like it was never going to be an 82-game season.
Right. But I saw people going, well, look, another shortened season in the Bettman era. It's like, what did you want him to do this year? His goal was trying to get you a normal season next year. So
this one particular time, it
shortened
wasn't Gary
season
Bettman's
and figure
fault.
it out, you know. But there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff that still needs to be discussed with this return, specifically where everybody's going to play, because there's been talks about hubs at times if it makes it safer. I think everybody really wants to just play in their own buildings. I would like to see everybody play in their own buildings. I think it would be better. Actually, believe it or not, something to kind of tie everything in with. Because basketball's starting up this week and things like that. The Sixers, like the way they made the arena look was pretty well done, you know, with the tarps over the seats. So on the broadcast, you can't tell that no one's there. Okay. You know, it looked just like it did in the bubble cities when the NHL was in Toronto and Edmonton. So I hope that they keep something like that and just they are able to translate this to every building, because I think it would be better if they translated it to every building, made it feel like there's some sort of familiarity with everything. You know, the bubble worked great for the playoffs. It's not going to happen in the regular season. Nobody wants to do it and take 6 months and be in different locations all the time. They want to be home for as much of it as they can, and I get it. So basically what we're waiting for now is how protocols are going to look, how testing is going to go with everything, how the divisions are going to look with realignment, and ultimately where everybody's going to play to an extent, because San Jose can't play in their building. Vancouver can't play in their building right now. I think there's other cities out there that can't. Winnipeg was one, I believe, at one point in time. So where's everybody going to play and figure it all out and get everybody where they need to go and move on and get this thing going?
Now, have they confirmed anything about fans? Because I read a report that said they were just going to leave it up to the states. Whatever
that's
the
what
government
I heard too.
allows, or I don't know if that's true. I don't know if they confirmed that. I'm not sure what the story is with that.
The owners were never going to approve any plan where the NHL limits fans in the building if their local government allows them to have fans in the building. All right, the owners are never going to approve something that cuts off a revenue source like that.
Well, it almost to an extent passes the buck too, because then this way it's not the NHL's fault to say you can't have fans.
It's whatever
now it's fight your own government. Like if you don't like it, talk. You know, and let's put it this way: it's not like Philadelphia is not going to have fans to start with. At the very least, it's not going to happen.
Not with the new
And it's just not going to happen. The Eagles had fans for like a game or two, and then had to pull back because the state changed the law again or changed the protocol again. So it's just like sometimes you just can't fight what they put out there. The state's going to do what the state's going to do. At the very least, at least the state of Pennsylvania is saying, go ahead and play in your own arena or venue and just don't have fans. San Jose is literally kicking the Sharks and teams in the area, the 49ers, literally out of the state and saying, you can't play a physical contact sport in this spot. And that's where it goes not too far, but it's like, these are professional leagues too. They do have testing in place. They should be able to figure this out and do it safely. But if the rest of the country can, then you should be able to as well. But that's up to each state. So that's not the discussion we're here to have.
Right.
Up to each state. I'm not talking about state legislature, but that's a different discussion for a different time. And I'm not talking about Canadian provinces either. Whatever they decide to do. The only thing I will say is we all put our guesses in, and we were all surprised it was British Columbia.
Yeah, we did. There were multiple guesses in, and none of them were BC.
Although I did see a good point later on, which was that Vancouver was supposed to be a hub city finalist in the summer, and then they were pulled at the last minute.
Yeah,
and it had to do with this type of issue.
I believe it's because British Columbia got a little skittish about it, if I recall.
Yeah, they didn't
correctly.
like the protocols, so they're still being very hard on this stuff. And I mean, you can't blame them, but.
So there are still a lot of details that are yet to be worked out about the return. But one thing we did learn about the return is that the Philadelphia Flyers will be joined by Phil Myers.
Yeah.
And that bridge, that bridge deal, which is kind of what we all expected given the current situation, that came through, and he'll be a Flyer for the next couple of years until, hopefully he signs a long-term extension, right? This is another, I hope this is the smallest contract you ever signed type situation.
It sure feels like it. I mean, 3 years is a really good. Anytime you can lock up somebody for 3 years in this current time with the flat cap and all that stuff, take advantage of it if you can. I think it's a good value for a guy who's going to play more minutes this year. I think that's a given. He's going to play more minutes because at the very least he'll play maybe a higher role in even strength, but he should have a bigger role in the penalty kill this year for sure.
Yeah, especially when it's going to go on.
Yeah, so I think he's, because I've been asked a couple times at the station too. One of the producers has texted me a couple times and expressed concerns with the defensive makeup of this team, and goes, "Who's supposed to fall into that slot? Don't tell me it's Braun or Gustafson." Or I said, I think it's Myers. Honestly, I think Myers is getting the promotion maybe to start and at least get a shot at it. And it's going to be weird to start with because of the fact that you'd like to give him a preseason game or two to try it out, and you don't get that luxury this time around. But neither does any other team that has holes to fill. And there's a lot of teams out there that do have holes to fill. There's teams out there that have to start their season in what, just under a month now, 3 weeks from now, based on everything we know, and they're not under cap yet.
Right.
So there's teams that have a lot bigger
Vegas
problems.
still has people to sign.
Tampa Bay too.
Tampa Bay, was it Anthony Cirelli and Eric Cernak still not signed? And they're over.
Cirelli definitely is not. I know that. And there's a lot of names out there that still have to be signed.
Matt Barzal's a big one.
Well, Barzal for the Islanders too, obviously. Yeah.
By the way, the Phil Myers deal is a 3-year deal. We didn't mention it. Just north of $2.5 million, right? $2.55 million per season. So if he continues growing like he has been developing, then it certainly seems like it'll be a nice little contract, and he's going to get a pretty decent raise at the end of it.
No, but I think that criticism, back to what you were saying, Kevin, about the Flyers defense is a fair one, though. Like, Phil Myers has played, 70 games? I mean, that's if he plays, or if he jumps into the next step. I mean, he still has work to do before he gets there.
Yeah, there's definitely some holes there. And the defense core, and I'm not blaming him, but the defense core was kind of counting on another year of Matt Niskanen. Right? Because if we're having this conversation next year and Phil Myers has 150 games under his belt, it's a whole different animal. Or even 100 games, 120 games. It's a little bit of a different conversation.
But see, here's the thing. Is Matt Niskanen retiring if everything doesn't happen from March on? Probably not.
No.
Probably not, no.
I just mean in terms of how it worked out, I think the Flyers organization was kind of counting on one more year of Matt Niskanen to let some of the younger pieces develop a little bit. I don't necessarily think they were expecting to have to fill a top pair hole this year.
Well, and I also think they were expecting more money to be involved in what they could do in the offseason. They had no flexibility because the cap never went up, and it's not going to go up for a while. So
they still ended up with about $5 million in cap space. The Flyers definitely
they did, but they went through. They had to go through it pretty quickly to sign some of the other guys that they had that you wanted to keep some stability for. That's the thing that I've liked about their offseason, that they don't have many pending free agents next season that you sit there and you go, that's a definite contract that needs to be signed or something like that, or that it's going to be a problematic contract. Like I eliminate 3 names from the pending free agent list for next year right away in terms of it's not my top priority. Like I probably can find somebody that I pay the same amount to next year that's not the same guy. Like I think you can replace an Eric Gustafson next year. You can replace a Brian Elliott next year. And I think you can replace a Michael Raffl next year.
I agree.
At a good cost. Not necessarily the player,
Michael Raffle, I think you're just replacing internally.
Well, and then the other two, but then
core.
two of the other names out of the 5 that are left are Nolan Patrick and Sam Moran, and it's like, well, you got to get on the ice first before I pay you.
That's fair.
So I'm waiting for that before I even concern.
Nolan Patrick.
So who are the 3 that are left? So who are the 3 that are left? Travis Sanheim, Carter Hart, and Scott Lawton. Those are the 3 that I think are the most important.
Yep.
Because there's not even the following years. Yes, you're going to have to eventually worry about some of these core guys and what you're going to do with the next contract for the biggest names on your team, the guys that have been at the top of the lineup. Right. But
there's big days coming. Yeah.
But I'm not taking concern with that this offseason because of the fact that it's flat cap and I need to see where everything goes beforehand. Like right now, my top priority is signing Carter Hart and then signing Travis Sanheim. That's my 2 top priorities. And Lawton's a good guy to have for as long as he can because I think he keeps coming into his own and he's a very good middle to bottom 6 guy.
Yeah, I was about to say, any chance Seattle takes him? I think it's a possibility.
I need to see the list. I mean, I really would need to see the list.
It's early.
Every list I've seen has him as kind of one of the top guys exposed, but I'm not really sure where they're going to end up.
Well, let's be real. And I don't care whether this is from the very beginning of camp or at the end of the regular season or whatever. If Nolan Patrick has an injury this year, I don't think you need to protect him because I don't think anybody wants him at that point.
I just don't think so. At a certain point, he's damaged goods.
Right. I just don't think he's going to be because
if Seattle takes him, I don't know how much
Seattle's going to have to meet because Seattle's going to have to meet a cap floor too. So what are you going to do? Give a guy, he makes less than $1 million.
I don't think
that's not a guy who gets you to your floor. You need a guy who does make a little bit of money.
About the cap floor.
I don't think they are either because there's going to be a lot of good players out there.
And a lot of desperate teams. Especially with the current flat cap, they're going to come in and have more leverage than Vegas had, and Vegas already had a ton.
I'm curious to see when the expansion draft actually happens, how much wheeling and dealing is going on, like it did with the Vegas one, because
I think teams are going to be
teams worked out deals with Vegas to make it so that they took certain players, and I'll give you
Erik
more
Karlsson
than
scored 42 goals. Yep,
William
Karlsson.
I'm sorry, scored 40, 41, 42 goals. Sorry
Sometimes I don't even remember that Erik Karlsson is a Shark right now. I
don't either.
That team has fallen so far from where they were like 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Because they can't get a goalie.
Well, yeah.
That's all it is.
Because everybody hyped up Martin Jones for 1 year.
Because
he was damn good that year.
He was damn good that year, but after that he wasn't.
I don't know if I have to be the one to tell you this. I don't know if
they did pay everybody. Dom's right. They did pay everybody.
They did pay everybody. But hey, I don't know if I have to be the one to tell you this, but if you're relying on Erik Karlsson and Brett Burns to be responsible defensively, at a certain point, it's not on your goalie.
Well, Erik Karlsson, I think it's health issues more with him from the defensive end because you have to have an element of
sure, but that's also never been his
a lot
strength.
of time. Brent Burns has never been a great defensive defenseman.
No, that's why he was a winger growing up.
Right. He got to remember
drafted as a winger
to defenseman.
Right, he pulled the old Dustin Byfuglien.
But yeah, I mean, to the point about the rosters and all that stuff, and maybe skipping the expansion stuff for a minute, though, you're going to have a lot of people coming up in the ranks. And we were talking about the defensive group and why there should be concerns, and there certainly should be. I'm never willing to go ahead and just say on paper I don't like this or I don't like that. I do want to see Erik Gustafsson before I make a call and say he's complete defensive liability. He's the other version of Ghost. I'm not going to go there just yet. I know the tendencies. I know the player enough to say that some of that is true, but I want to see how much he adapts to AV's system and how much goes into this a little bit, to see how they play. I certainly hope if there's a guy who needs to improve, it's Gostisbehere. If there's a guy who really needs to improve, if he's going to stick in the lineup, if he's even going to stick in the lineup.
Interestingly enough, I am looking on Daily Faceoff at the projected line combinations.
Oh, no.
And they actually have Ghost as a healthy scratch.
Okay.
And they have Provorov, Myers, the first line.
All right.
Sanheim, Gustafsson at the second. And Hag and Braun at the third.
It's about what you expect.
Now if and when there's a trade deadline, I would like to see them make a move for another defenseman.
April 12th, by the way.
Okay, so as much as I'd love a goal scorer, we talked about Line A before, but I would love to see them add defense if they could. Like in our group chat.
Speaking of a scorer, is there any chance the Flyers go out and offer Mike Hoffman a 1 year, $2 million deal? And at this point, there's a chance he accepts it because what else is out there?
I'm smiling because I already know the answer. No.
Why is that?
Because they haven't been interested in him from the beginning.
Yeah, but I also think his price was very high from the beginning, and how
Fair
much
enough,
of it
but
is...
if they're not giving a 1-year, $1.7 million deal to Anthony Duclair, who scored a decent amount, and I'm not
Listen, I would have loved that,
because as much as it's low risk, high reward, the guy is infuriating at times with his consistency. He's infuriating at times.
Yeah, there's
and
a reason he's been on what 5 teams,
right? And he's bounced around to 5-6 teams in however many years.
Here's the thing: I want them to sign Mike Hoffman and put him on the same line as Jake Voracek, so Mike can blow his head off from watching them turn the puck over at the blue line.
I actually like Hoffman. I like Hoffman a lot. Voracek is infuriating to watch, but you know,
they can just pass it back and forth to each other and turn the puck over.
But exactly, here's the thing then with what Mike just said. Then, if Voracek's infuriating to you already, then having him on this team will make it infuriating.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Because defensively, he is awful.
Absolutely,
and his puck management is terrible as well. Yeah, like
no, he's
great for that. He's great. Well, he's great for that. Put him on that side on the power play. Set him up for the one timer. Let him go.
You sign him for 1 year, $2 million. You stick him on your fourth line and just let him play power play time. I don't have a problem with that.
Here's the problem I have with it to an extent. Because I've seen a lot of people talk about the score, and believe it or not, I've even seen people talk about how they need to get tougher. They need this tough guy on the roster, and it's like Bill Meltzer corrected whoever it was too, and turned around and said like, team toughness is what builds the whole thing, not the one individual guy who you throw out there because you want some motivation. You need collective team toughness, like in terms of what we're all looking for check and being able to maintain control of the puck or get a guy off of the puck and do things like that. You build this thing. The whole thing you have to do is you build this thing from the goalie out. So you've got the goalie that's been the biggest concern of every offseason. You've got the guy now, and we all know it. And top priority for this season, next season, off season
franchise.
Yeah, right. Is sign him long term and keep him healthy. That's
when his contract is up, you hand him the paper and say, "Please, sir, write down whatever numbers you want. We will sign it."
I'm telling you that Matt Murray deal. That's the foundation of what it's going to be. That's the comparable for him. I think based on what his role is going to be.
I want to double it. You can double the length, double the years.
Double it. Okay.
Fine. Well, you can't max out at more than 8.
Sure you can. It's fine. Sure you can. It's fine.
They are not making.
The
NHL is not making an exception just because the Flyers finally have a goaltender.
Listen,
they are not making
the CBA. It's fine.
But from the goalie, obviously we've talked about this now. You've got the goalie, you've got Carter Hart. Now you build out the defenseman, and you do have 3 guys now that are locked up for a little longer. I mean, Sanheim's going to need a new contract after next year, but you've got Myers for 3. You've got Provorov for 5 more. If you can, once again, if you can get Gostisbehere to be at least somewhat serviceable, you've got him for a few more years. Not that people want to hear that.
For the record, your buyout money comes off the books this year.
But I also think that like even guys like Haig and Braun, who are not going to be the forefront of the defensive core, you've got them signed to friendly deals for the cap. It's not an overpayment to me. Braun was an overpayment a year ago. Now he's making $1.8 million. Now I think he's more on par with where the market is for somebody like him who plays third pairing minutes.
Well, I think it was an overpayment for what you gave up too. What was that? Second and third?
The picks, yes. And that's the thing. I mean, the only good thing that did for you is it gave you his rights to do this like when you need to, because I don't think they were bringing him back until Niskanen retired. Yeah. And all of a sudden it was, we got to backtrack quick. Backtrack, get pen to paper on this guy because we need somebody who's a veteran. Because otherwise, you were getting what, Igor Zamula in his rookie year or something like that. Like, I do think he might see some time at some point this year. I'm fully prepared for him to be on that taxi squad.
Yeah, I can see it.
I'm fully prepared for that.
I think he's going to get a chance at least. Yeah,
sure. I mean, let's this way. Mark Friedman's going to get a chance at some point because he's proven he can play at the level on occasion. He's not going to be a regular, but I think he's going to bounce in. He's absolutely going to bounce in.
I expect him to get a dozen games or so. He'll be your 7 or your 8.
That sounds about fair. Yeah. A dozen. That sounds like a good number.
Whenever you're playing 3 and 4 and somebody needs a rest, something like that.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see a lot of 3 and 4s, and we'll talk about that when we have a schedule, probably on our next show after the new year.
But I'd love it to win.
What forces those young guys to come up? Is it the bad play by Haig and Braun? Because that would terrify me. Because they're like, what do you do in the middle? Like, I don't know.
I don't think the thing is, it's not that they're. It's not that Hag and Braun are bad. It's just that you got to get fresh
like
legs. You just have to get fresh legs in the lineup, give teams different looks, give those guys a chance to catch a break. Even other guys, like there are probably going to be nights this season where almost everybody other than Provorov will have nights off because Ivan Provorov's not taking a game off.
That's starting to look like a bargain, isn't it? His
contract sure is.
The guy misses for nothing. Misses a game for nothing. I mean, he really doesn't miss any time at all.
The Russian machine never.
The
wins.
Machine.
But he is a machine. He's not even human at this point.
He's not human.
It's just Ivan Drago. That's all he is.
Yeah, pretty much.
Fine.
I mean,
he will break you. If he dies, he dies.
Because we talked about this last show, Kyle. Right? He's already here. He's already in for. He's been here. He's for over a month and a half.
Yep.
I get it when Tanner Lashinsky and Carson Twarynski are sitting there going, "I got here early because I want to get a leg up on."
I want to impress the coaches and show that I was here.
Nothing to prove at this point, but he's going, "I'm here early because I just want to skate." Yep. That's all.
I would be willing to bet that.
And I will say that the video that came out after the reverse retro jerseys came out, where they had him wearing the full uniform. I'm glad he kept the flow. I like the flow on Ivan Provorov, by the way.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Ivan Provorov leads the league in ice time this year.
It's going to be really interesting. You're right.
I think there's a real chance that he's the most durable defenseman of the young bunch and the most likely to play all the games. Because I think, let's put it this way. If you're the coach of Colorado, you're probably a little more willing to give Cale Makar a night off here or there. Same with Dallas and Miro Heiskanen. These guys who are a little tiny bit younger. Ivan Provorov has the miles. He's proved that he's just going to play all 82.
I don't see a team giving Cale Makar or Miro Heiskanen a night off
at all. You never know.
The thing that you have to remember about these shortened seasons is that every game has more meaning now. Fair. So I don't care if Colorado, Dallas, whatever, they're going to be playing a lot of.
Well, maybe they don't have to rely on them as much because in Colorado you have Sam Girard, you have Bowen Byram coming up.
Yeah,
so maybe you don't have to rely on.
Oh yeah, you've got more guys. You've got more guys. I'm not denying that.
But you're not giving them a night off. Yeah.
No, you don't give a guy a night off ever. I don't think.
How many of those guys are playing 27 minutes every night? That's the thing, right?
So Makar's not minutes on a night where it's the third game in 5 days or something like that. Might come down to 20 or 21.
Who would have thought Kyle's the LeBron of the group? My gosh, the time management, like
the best.
Oh man,
sorry, the best.
Don't even get me started.
Is that what you're saying?
Keep going. Just come on.
Here's
don't
the
even
thing.
Get me started.
Cale Makar's division. Cale Makar's playing for Colorado in a division that's going to have 3 of the top 4 teams in that. Well, I don't even know how we're going to structure the conferences at this point because it's going to be all over the place. But they're going to have 3 really good teams in that division. He's got when you got to go against Vegas and St. Louis regularly. That's going to be a lot of tough minutes.
Speaking of new division opponents, every alignment I've seen has the Boston Bruins joining the division.
Yeah, that gets interesting. I mean, there's a lot of things about I think there's a lot of things about this division that are favorable for the Flyers to an extent because I think you can take 2 teams and just push them to the side immediately. They're still growing too much.
That would be New Jersey and Florida.
Buffalo.
Buffalo. I'm sorry, Buffalo. Yeah. I'm sorry that Florida's going to be in probably the other division, right?
And then we'll see. It's those 2 I think are still growing too much to really be concerns as contenders. The Rangers are kind of the Rangers are really an unknown to me because yes, here we go once again, just like with Capo Caco, you're going to add a new top pick. Man. So
Rangers kind of scare me. Not scare, but I think the Rangers are going to make a run at a playoff spot.
Here's the thing.
I think they're the same thing they were last year.
No, they're better than they were last year. Your goalies are more experienced, and you add Lafreniere, and Adam Fox has another. Yes.
Are their goalies good?
I think they're solid, and I think your defense is like you have Adam Fox with another year. Your whole defensive core just has another year playing together.
What does Adam Fox do in his own zone?
Okay, I'm going to give you a reason why the Rangers are not going to be as much of a threat as you think. You got to be really crisp, really early, and there's a lot of new moving parts to this team. Right. And not only that, but look what happened when they came out of the pause in the playoffs. They couldn't win a game.
Okay, and for the record,
if you take 2 weeks and can't win a game for a while or win 1 game in 2 weeks, you're doomed from the start.
When I say the Rangers are a threat, I don't mean that they're a threat to the Flyers because I really genuinely think that the Flyers are, if not a top 5 team in the league, a top 6 or 7 in the team in the league at most. When I say the Rangers are a threat, I mean I think the Rangers are a threat to make the playoffs. I think they're a threat to make a run, maybe snag a wild card spot. I think they're a solid team.
Okay, so
in the
my
proposed
question
division, it's going to be tough because it's going to be a very good division.
My question to that, Kyle, is if you're saying, okay, they might be a shot at like a wild card or whatever, the playoff structure is the top 4 from every division makes it. So which team are you pulling from a top 4?
I don't know.
Because I think there's 4 that are pretty obvious that should make the playoffs here.
Okay, so let's break this down. I assume you're putting Washington, Philadelphia.
I'm saying Washington, Boston, and the Islanders.
Washington, Boston, and the Islanders, and the Flyers.
Yeah.
Are your 4?
Yeah.
Okay. I think the Rangers could challenge the Islanders.
Okay. I think the Rangers are going to have a tough time even getting over Pittsburgh still.
Okay. I
would put Pittsburgh as the 5th, then the Rangers, and then the last 2.
Man, I forgot how this division's going to be stacked. This division's insane.
The one thing that because I'm preparing to write an article about this because now that we know the structure is
I'm just grateful Carolina's not in it.
Well, that's I guess. I mean, those games are what they are.
You basically trade Carolina for Boston, essentially. I mean, they're the same team.
Pretty much. I mean, Buffalo.
Wise.
What was the other? Who's the other one that's missing from this?
Columbus.
Yeah.
You lose Columbus, but whatever. I'm still convinced that Columbus was, if you'll pardon the pun, a bit of a glass cannon, and that they had a good year and their goalies got hot at the right times. I'm not sure that Columbus is still a good team, and I know that they've been doubted for like the last 3 years, and
because they're not a good team.
I think I'm the only one still saying this, but like, let's put it this way: if John Tortorella gets that team to the playoffs again, give him the Jack Adams for the rest of his life.
Yeah, they're the poor man's version of the New York Islanders, essentially.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, that's a fair comparison.
Who's there? And they're Matt Barzal, Pierre-Luc Dubois. Yeah, there's a real good comparison there. They're basically the same team.
I don't think Dubois is as skilled of a player as Barzal is. Like in terms of the hands and all that stuff. Like I don't see Dubois making the same moves that Barzal does. I see Dubois being a very good all-around player, especially as a center.
At the current moment, Matt Barzal doesn't have a contract, and they don't have a whole lot of cap space. So
but
I don't know what Matt Barzal's going to do this year.
Columbus has something that the Islanders don't have, and that's a legit number 1 defenseman in Seth Jones, who's insane.
And a legit number 2 in Zach Werenski.
Number 2 in Zach Werenski. I thought that's who you were going to say.
No, I think Jones is leaps and bounds better than Werenski personally. But.
I think Jones is better. I wouldn't say leaps and bounds, but I definitely understand.
Yeah, I wouldn't say leaps and bounds, but yeah, Jones is still the better one at the moment, easily.
Yeah, I'm not sad to have them out of the division, but I'm definitely not sad to have.
Back to one thing you were saying, Kyle, because I was trying to remember where I was going with that.
Okay.
One of the things because I'm preparing to write about this later this week. This could bring back a ton of rivalries that feel like they're not as hyped anymore. You know, even Flyers Penguins was losing some of the luster a little bit.
I want to hear a lot about 2010 this year. I want to hear a lot about Boston blowing a 3-0 lead. I want to hear a lot about it. That could be
interesting. Yeah. I mean,
I'm curious if this creates any new rivalries. I mean, maybe not long-term rivalries, but you're going to go against the
Buffalo.
Yeah, you're going to go up against the Sabres a bunch. I'm curious if that creates any short-term rivalries.
That's definitely a rivalry that'll be forged in the playoffs.
I think you're going to see Flyers Islanders become more of a thing.
I could see that.
Because let's just one of the things Kyle and I have talked about on the show in the last couple of weeks is and it's unfortunate that it's not going to happen this year because all Canadian division, but the Flyers Canadian series kind of brought back some animosity, and it would have been great to see that carry over into a new season. The fact that you played this team in a playoff series and it went 7 games and had so much overtime and so much of the other stuff, you know, like I think that's going to create a new situation too. Like that,
especially with the way the Islanders play.
Yeah,
that's okay. Can the Flyers Islanders rivalry survive the loss of Johnny Boychuk?
Yeah, it can. I think so.
Okay, what will Jake Voracek do now? I don't understand.
Why? Get into it with Matt Martin if he resigns.
No. Why would you do that to Jake Voracek? What are you doing?
Cal Clutterbuck, is he still there?
Okay, yeah, Cal Clutterbuck is still there.
Listen, I don't want anyone on the Philadelphia Flyers to go after Matt Martin because I don't believe a single Philadelphia Flyer can take Matt Martin in a hockey fight right now.
Okay, I didn't mean like go after him, but I meant if he's giving you the business, I don't think he's backing down.
I also think you're underestimating Voracek's fighting abilities. He doesn't do it often, but what he does, he throws.
Yeah, he does.
He caught Rob Scuderi by surprise one time, and that's about it. I don't understand
I was there for that game, okay? Look, that was fun. I don't know. He came out of that pile, threw his hands up in the air, and the place went nuts, and I missed that right now.
It's funny.
I missed that noise.
I was also at that game. That's really funny.
Yeah, but I had a better seat than you did, bud.
I'm sure you did. I was up in the nosebleeds.
Well, technically so was I, but I didn't have anybody to deal with around me.
That's fair.
It's a life.
But either way, we're closing in on a season, boys. Does it feel real yet?
It does now.
It's starting to crystallize. It's starting to crystallize. Players are starting to work their way back. We're starting to see.
It's funny to me because does it feel real? My answer was going to be no because when it came out that they had a tentative agreement, I was going to tweet out, and it was so quickly pushed aside, like the votes were coming, because I was going to tweet out, don't get too hyped yet until you actually have them going to a vote, because man, is everything subject to change, and there's all this flexibility going on between
it's a little
pandemic and discussions between the league and the Players Association.
Sorry, are you trying to tell me that labor discussions in the NHL are a little fragile? I don't understand.
Sometimes they are. Sometimes they are.
Oh, okay.
See, and
what you think it's all sunshine and rainbows like it was in the summer? You know,
yeah.
It just goes that smoothly. We get a 6-year deal that quickly.
And then the owners want to renegotiate 90 days later.
Yeah, right. 6 years, no labor, and then no labor disputes, and here we go.
3 months later, the owners were like, so we actually read the thing. And now we don't agree.
See, like the way that I look at this season too is like right now we only have football on, right? Mm-hmm. and next week we get basketball, and then hopefully in 3 weeks or whatever it is we get hockey. I'm not just looking forward to hockey again. I'm looking forward to what this team has to prove, and like just
it's not the mere presence of hockey.
No, it is. But I'm
just excited hockey's back.
No, I know. I'm saying it's more than just.
It's more than just hockey.
It's more than just. Hey, I'm excited to have hockey to watch. I'm excited to have good hockey to watch.
Right, like we have something to look forward to. Like this team to hopefully make a long, deep playoff run.
And we saw a little bit of this in March before the shutdown. The city's gonna get behind this team.
I think especially if let's put it this way, it won't be too long.
If the Sixers suck again, because that'll make it way easier.
Sixers aren't going to suck again. I can tell you that. They'll be okay. I'm not sure they're going to be the top of the conference, but they're going to be good. I can tell you that probably. But I think what people are going to be excited for is by the time this hockey season starts, at least in Philadelphia, football is kind of over. I mean, people will watch the playoffs, but it's probably going to be over by then.
Certainly will be.
And
unless Jalen Hurts, does what
yeah, well, I that's why I said that's why I went with probably. Oh
God, now we have to call this episode quarterback controversy to get clicks, don't we?
No, we don't.
We
don't. Do you want to know what you're going to call this episode? You're going to call this episode "We Are Back," or for the 100th time.
It's number 100.
It's the reunion. There you go.
It's number 100.
The Eagles should just put the best quarterback in the city in Ivan Provorov.
Oh, you're right. You know what? Wait.
Put him behind center.
No, I think Tony Danza is picking garbage somewhere in South Philly if we need a kicker. I mean, listen, you've all seen the movie. Don't lie to me and tell me you haven't seen the garbage picking field goal kicking Philadelphia phenomenon. Come on now. Tony Danza's finest work of 1989.
Isn't this the second time you brought this up on the show?
Is it?
Probably. It might be. I thought
you wouldn't surprise me.
I thought you did way back when when all this started and we had nothing to talk about because there was no season anymore, and we sat here and we went, so now what do we do?
So what that is that's called a callback. It's episode 100, so I'm calling back to that time I did it. I definitely didn't do it. I definitely did that on purpose. Totally.
Sure. Whatever.
Listen, we are completely off the rails here. We are completely off the rails.
Back to the excitement about this team and how we're ready to see them play again, because I think what we're ready to see is because there actually is a lot of new faces to an extent, because I think a lot of the people below the normal lineup, like I want to see Tanner Lashinsky this year. I want to kind of see if Wade Allison makes the jump or not. I want to see Linus Sandin for sure, because I think that's a guy who fits the bottom 6 really well. I want to see Oscar Lindblom back. Let's not bury that. Let's not bury that lead. He's cancer free still a year later, and that's pretty awesome stuff. And he's going that one, and that to me is an indication that when the season starts in 3 weeks, he's coming back to skate. He's coming back to be ready, and he's going to play.
Yeah, I'm expecting.
He's projected to go back on that second line too on daily faceoff.
Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. I think he's absolutely. Now he's had some time. I know that they kind of got him back into the lineup a little bit quickly there with the playoffs. They wanted to do it when they could. Now I think he's had some time.
I still expect a little bit of rust shaking off. I expect it to be a little rusty for the first several games.
Yeah, I'm not going to go out there and tell you Oscar Lindblom's going to score 30 goals this year or on pace to score 30 in a normal length season.
But I think
like he was a year ago. But I think he should be a helpful part of this team. He should be, if you were looking for a guy to kind of add it forward, I think getting him back for a full year is going to be an addition. It's not going to be massive this year in terms of getting to like that 30 goal and 82 game pace. But
I think that's why you didn't really see this team hustle to go out and replace a guy like Tyler Pitlick. Right, because they don't really need to.
I think Lindblom's got a very friendly deal for the next 3 years. Certainly, I think maybe not this upcoming season where he might be still shaking off a little bit of what he's missed, but I think that two years down the road, whether it's the following season, the last one of his contract, whatever it is, he's going to get back to that production, I think, at some point, because he knows he can do it. And he's as determined as anybody. I think we know that by now.
Yeah, I think there's a real chance he just comes back and there's no rust and he's fine. And I'm not expecting it, but if anyone can do it, just based on what Oscar's done with this whole thing, he might come back and score 25 goals in a 56 game
and
season.
He's gonna have a huge benefit from everybody having a long time off. I think that's going to help him too, because a lot of people are going to be shaking off the rust early. So he might get his legs under him in a week or two of playing actual games. And maybe that's enough time for him to correct course there and become that same productive player he was in that time. I wouldn't be shocked by it.
And in the meantime, the team is good enough around him that there's not going to be a ton of pressure on him to produce. He's going to have the ability to just go out there and play loose, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. And I mean, I definitely – and I want to see these guys who we knew took a bigger step or who we wonder where they're going to be. I want to see where everybody is when it all gets started. I want to see how Nick Aube-Kubel has grown.
That's one
last
from
year. He's definitely a guy I want to see. I mean, obviously, I think the biggest question we're all waiting to find out is if Nolan Patrick is cleared to practice and have contact and maybe get into a game soon. I hope so. I'd like to see it. Who knows? I'd like to see who, in addition to the 3 names I mentioned off the top that would be newcomers to this taxi squad call up system that they have, add in the other guys who we want to see more from. Morgan Frost, guys like that. I definitely want to see how Morgan Frost fits into this picture.
I expect him to get a shot this year.
Oh, I expect him to get more than a shot, because I think one of the things that you're going to do more often, like we talked about, if you sit a defenseman here or there, I don't think you're going to see guys sit as often if they're being productive. And defensively, that means a lot of things. But at forward, if you got a guy who's not scoring a little bit and he's more on the bottom end, or he's not pitching in the right way, then you give him a night off and you switch out, because I think those are the guys you need to – the guys you need to drive the offense the most at the forward position. You're going to switch guys in and out and move people around and play them with different partners until you find something that's really clicking. And look, here's the thing. One of the things I'm tired of hearing too. I'm really tired of Twitter putting out there and maybe some of our listeners, who you are if I've read this, talking about playoff Travis Konechny. It's one playoff, for God's sake.
I'm not worried about Travis Konechny.
I'm tired of this. The guy scored 24 goals in each of the last 3 seasons. I know he can score, and I'm not worried about him.
22, 23?
23 now, I think, yeah.
Okay. That was his first playoff.
Yeah, and it was his first real playoff. I mean, outside of the Pittsburgh series?
Right,
where they got stomped for 6 games and he was playing in the bottom 6. Team was not good.
Because people say it like it's so easy, You take 6 months off or 4 months off from what you do on a daily basis and then say I'm going to go back and be as good as I was when it stopped. It's not going to happen. You need a little bit of time. No. And yes, it didn't. And I think teams knew to take him away to an extent, to get under his skin in different ways.
Yeah.
And to make him the focus.
Teams absolutely
to an extent. And they played tough defensive teams and actually countered it because, again, you build from the goalie out. So if the goalie is your best player and you can win a series behind a goalie, and it's way too early to talk about this stuff because it's not playoffs we're coming back to.
Listen, I would just like to point out that either the NHL or the NHL Network had Carter Hart in their top 10 goalies in the NHL currently, today, at this moment.
Bovada's betting odds had him as 4th or 5th on the list among Vezina favorites. Yeah.
Listen.
He's not the top of the list, but he's 5th down the line. Listen. And I think that just has to do with how much he's going to play.
This is all Kyle had to hear.
Listen, it's... Y'all here know, if you've been listening to this show, I love me some Carter Hart. And it's good. I am happy.
Hey, look,
this has played out.
Just the other day, and
yet.
Just the other day, and I reposted it too because it was 2 years from the date he made his NHL debut, and it feels like the discussions so was I, obviously. It feels like the discussions we would have had then, because I wasn't on the show then, or what, all that stuff. It feels like the discussions we would have had 2 years ago are not the discussions we have now because you have a goalie. Like it changes the dynamic so much. How far things have come because you got a goalie.
That's what I'm saying. Like imagine this was like if this was going on like 2-3 years ago, we wouldn't be looking forward to like the way we are now. Nope. Like this upcoming season.
We weren't. Your goalies were Steve Mason and Michael Neuwirth.
Well, did you see someone posted the clip? I can't remember who it was, but someone posted the clip of Mason making a series of saves against the Rangers in that one playoff year. And somebody looked and went, Braden Shen, Vinny LeCavalier, Mark Streit, Andrew McDonald.
Yep.
Oh my God.
I was at game 4
did we not give Mason enough credit for what he did while he was here with the guys that were out there?
I firmly believe, and I said on this show that Steve Mason didn't get enough credit when he was here. In the early days, I kind of agree with you
because he's the third winningest goalie in Flyers history, which isn't saying a lot, by the way.
Was he fantastic?
But he had consistency issues for sure.
He did.
Was he fantastic?
But he also had terrible teams in front of him.
Right. Did he have Andre Mazzaros as a top pair defenseman for a lot of his tenure? Yes, he did. So he deserves some credit here. Okay.
Was that even Mason's time?
I thought
Mazzaros was gone by then. I think Michael Leighton had Andre Mazzaros as a
for a year. Andre Mazzaros was here until like 2016, man. He was here for a very long time.
Was he? I thought he was only here until like 13 or 14.
And no, man, because every year it just dragged on like a fever dream. I
thought that was Andrew McDonald.
Every
year it dragged on until they finally. Because you got to remember, look who finally bought him out. It wasn't Ron Hextall.
No, it sure wasn't. I've given Ron Hextall a lot of credit on this show, and that's not one of the moves I like the most out of Ronnie.
Ron Hextall still deserves a lot of credit because the reason we're talking like
Carter Hart, he drafted Carter Hart.
Exactly. I had this thought earlier in the week.
That's the whole keystone.
As they are structuring the divisions and as you're trying to figure out who's a playoff team and who's not, you got to figure out like there's going to be good, there's good teams, there's great teams, there's elite teams, and then there's obviously below the good.
And then there's the Flyers. No, okay.
No, there's obviously below the good level too. But I'm like, if you can just name the goalie and say that makes us a good team, then I think you're in a good spot right away. Then you're borderline because I think the Flyers are between that good and great. They're definitely not elite. They're on the border of being the great team, and I don't
know, man.
I think we need to see who delivers on what they did a year ago. If Kevin Hayes is still close to the same player he was a year ago, then you've got something. If Travis Konechny is still scoring at that clip consistently, if they fill the void defensively, then yes, then I think you've got the makings of a great team.
I think the Flyers are knocking on the door to elite.
But I think you start the discussion of they're a good team by mentioning one player. If all you have to do is say Carter Hart is on this team and you can go, they're a good team. That's, I think that's a good foundation, certainly.
Sure, and then you look at the top pair defensively and you point at Ivan Provorov and say, here's one of the best defensemen in the NHL.
And that's why I'm saying it goes between good and great.
And then you look at the first line and see that Sean Couturier just won the Selke and is your first line center.
Well, that adds to some credibility. I'll give you that. That's a national league-wide award.
If you have a top 10 defenseman in the league, or I'm sorry, a top 10 goalie in the league.
Okay, all right.
If you have a top 10 goalie in the league, a top 20, 15, 20 defensemen in the league, I think we can get him in there pretty safely.
Well, not according to NHL Network, but who cares about lists?
Okay, sure.
There's the title of your episode. Who cares about lists?
Yeah, there are some bad names on that list. And also a top 10 center who just won a major league award. That does you a lot of good in terms of being an elite team, right? That's the blueprint for it.
I just think they're missing one really big thing.
Patrick Laine.
Correct. Yeah. Just that goal scorer.
Yeah, well, Mike Hoffman's sitting there.
And look,
April 12th, you said, Kyle, trade deadline. There you go.
April 12th.
But it's something
Patrick
I've said.
will be a Flyer by April 12th.
How many teams are tweeting out fake trade rumors on April Fool's Day? Come on. 11 days before the deadline. Come on.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good dynamic.
11 days before the trade deadline. There's talk about quarantines if they're going over the border. So there's going to be trades that are kind of done a little earlier this year, I think, because players might have to quarantine if they go over the border in a trade.
Yeah, that's
man. When April 1st is going to be good for fake rumors. Watch your back.
When Laine gets traded here, we'll just give him the vaccine. It's not a big deal.
Yeah,
it should be good. But I wanted to go, I want to touch back on something I said several weeks ago, Kyle, and we talked about this when we talked about constructing the rosters. A goal scorer is a luxury that you get once you have everything else in place, which is why what Dom said is true. If you need to fill something at defense, then you fill that void at defense before you get the goal scorer.
Yeah,
because you have the bigger hole there. Like, the Flyers are never going to be in a position we're never going to be in a position to go out and get the goal scorer without having the goalie in place. Now you drafted the goalie, you've got the goalie. Okay. Now what's next? You have a solid enough defensive scorer. I think you've got 3 really good pieces, 3 pieces that have a lot of room to grow though, because they're very young. I mean, Provorov still could take even a bigger step than he did this year. And that's saying a lot because I think he took a big step this year in terms of what he does. I think
if he takes another big step, he's going to get himself in the top 10. I'm just going to say that.
He should, I think at some point. Like, I think if he continues to, if the projected trajectory of his career continues, then I think he eventually will be in that grouping. You know,
right,
well, you gotta eventually expect that somebody who's in that top grouping or whoever made that stupid list.
I was also about to say
that list because they're getting older.
Didn't somebody put Drew Doughty on that list? Because listen,
Drew Doughty was on that list.
Drew Doughty does not deserve a spot on that list in 2020. In 2016, sure, Drew Doughty was great. In 2020, Drew Doughty does not deserve a spot in the top 20 defensemen in the NHL, especially at the expense of Ivan Provorov.
I'm saying 2012 and 2014, he probably was the best defenseman in the league.
And that's total credit to him, but that doesn't hold for 6 years. You don't get to hold on to that 6 years later.
And well, look, I've said many times in the show who I think the number 1 defenseman in the league is right now, and it's Victor Hedman. But you know, that's now. Down the road, it's not going to be. That's just the way it goes in the league.
It might not be by the end of this season, honestly. The way Cale Makar played his rookie year, if he continues elevating to the level that he did in his rookie year, he might just be there.
I think Makar's still got a lot of room to grow.
And I understand.
I mean, he's very young.
But I think he gets himself in that conversation.
I think he does down the road. Because I think I keep lumping Provorov with McAvoy with Werenski and going, that's the future of the league in terms of defensemen. That's one of the big portions of the future of the league anyway. You know, and then yes, there's gonna be guys who are coming too. I mean, because Makar's gonna have Quinn Hughes on his shoulder the whole time.
Yep. And Miro Heiskanen
that's
right
going to be the
too.
battle the whole time that they go through this. It's going to be.
Man, that battle would be a lot more fun if it was happening between the Flyers and Devils, wouldn't it? Well, right? If hindsight's 2020 and the Devils draft Makar and the Flyers get to take Quinn Hughes,
that'd be interesting.
And that's a fun little rivalry to have in the division, isn't it?
I think the Devils, I mean, I don't know. I told you the Devils aren't a threat to me this year. I don't see them. They're still growing too much. Even with all the top draft picks they had, they're still growing too much. They're another team, young goalie that they're going to rely on heavily. And
yeah, they're more than likely going to hang out in the bottom of the division.
Defensively, there's not a lot that wows me about them at all. I mean, Will Butcher's a decent defenseman, but
they finally got rid of Andy Green, right?
Yeah, Andy Green was on the Islanders last year.
Right. Yeah.
Remember he scored a game-winning goal in the playoffs.
Yeah, he sure did.
Flyers somehow.
Yeah, he sure did. That was brutal.
Yeah, that's because they didn't show up. They didn't show up that night. That's why. Andy Green scored a goal 4 minutes in, and then the Flyers didn't show up for the rest of the game.
Yep. So, in a tradition that goes back, really honestly, as long as this show, Mike's timing continues to be horrible. I was just about to transition us over into kind of talking about the show and talking about the history and actually
keep it going.
And Mike does have an out here. So if at some point his wife starts yelling at him too much, he's going to disappear off the video feed. So Mike, why don't you, since we're here, before we get into the conversation, why don't you throw out all your socials so our fans can follow you if they want?
Yeah,
they should know where to find you because you retweet yourself all the time on the podcast.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's just at YWT podcast is just a Mike _Giletto promo account at this point.
Basically, and since you said it, I guess I don't really have to anymore. Yeah, Mike _Giletto on Twitter.
It's still burned into my memory because I did it 40 times at the beginning of the show.
Right.
The beginning and the end of every episode, it was part of the gimmick.
Yeah.
But
part of the gimmick.
So we're
calling it.
We can circle back on on any Phil Myers, any lineup talk that we have left. But I do want to give Mike a chance.
Yeah, it's been fun doing the last 100 episodes. I went back. Kevin, your first episode was episode 52. So you've been here damn near 50 episodes.
Just about half.
He went back and looked too. I have this written down as well.
And you weren't on every episode for a while. So do either of you have the stat on when you kind of joined full time here? When you started coming
didn't look at that. I just looked at the first episode.
I do have it. Hang on a minute. I wrote down a whole thing I was going to talk about, and I didn't plan on doing it this early. So let me see if I can find
Sorry about that, Mike.
Yeah, that's my bad.
It's fine. No, it's all good.
Mike needs an out, so I wanted to transition over to that conversation at some point.
Maybe I didn't write down exactly what episode episode it was. I know when the time frame was that I started joining every episode because it was right when quarantine started.
Okay.
Because I was pretty much every other every third episode, and then Kyle, you got in touch with me because I think it was because our plans changed. I texted you when everything stopped that weekend. I'm like, well, now we don't. I think
you said I'm pretty much good whenever, and I was like, okay, well,
not
on every show now.
I did, but I also remember saying from that very first week that everything stopped because we were supposed to do the live show at the center,
right?
And when that wasn't going to happen, I turned around and I said, all right, talk to Mike Senior, see if he wants to jump on now this week because we don't have to do just the two of us this time,
right?
And let's just do this. And we ended up having this really fun conversation that had nothing to do with hockey. We talked like for 30 minutes about movies and music and all that stuff.
We needed a good little distraction show, and we had a good little distraction show.
And then the very next week, you came back with the brackets, and that was where everything started. Then you guys had me on for the whole thing. Yep. And then obviously after that, it was playoffs and live shows and all that good stuff.
And you just got hooked. Sorry, we really hooked you pretty good there, didn't we?
Well, I'll save my piece for closer to the end of this discussion.
Okay, well, we'll let Mike hear that.
Let Mike go.
We'll let Mike hear that in post.
All right, it's been fun.
Mike, I just wanted to say it's been 100 episodes, and everyone else has kind of ebbed and flowed and been. You and I are the only ones whose hands have touched every single episode, and
yep.
I appreciate the work we've done, and we've kind of started this. We've started this from the ground up, and I'll make sure you get your 5% share when we're millionaires.
That's it. That's all I get.
5% share.
No, I'm kidding.
It's 5% of nothing is still nothing. So
you have always been a fantastic asset to the show for the most part, except for your stupid opinions sometimes. But that's okay. Listen, this is a nice thing. It's a nice thing, not mean. This is a nice thing.
You're the one that said on this podcast Eric Lindros was mediocre.
And you said Wayne Simmons was replaceable, and they haven't replaced him.
And they did replace him.
With who?
Literally the next year.
With who?
Anybody.
Okay, who? Okay, then why did we have a conversation about the Flyers needing to get tougher again? Wayne Simmons filled that role. They haven't replaced him.
We haven't had that discussion.
You had that discussion. You said.
No, I said there's people out there that are saying they need a tough guy. They do not need a tough guy like Wayne Simmons anymore. And by the way,
okay, but they haven't replaced him.
And Albert Kubel is that guy. Albert Kubel is that guy.
Yes, they have. They've replaced him with Oscar Lindblom. He's played that net front spot.
Yep.
Sure. I think Patrick was supposed to be that guy too.
And when Oscar Lindblom knocks out Ryan McDonough, we'll have a different conversation.
He's not going to have to knock out Ryan McDonough or Johnny Boychuk or whatever you want to go to off of this. Because you mentioned Johnny Boychuk on this show.
Yep.
Mike,
I will get out of here.
Thank you for 100 episodes. Fun. We'll let you go.
Absolutely. All right.
Awesome stuff, buddy. Mike. See ya.
That's it.
By the way, Andre Mazzaros was here from 2010 to 2014. He got traded at the deadline.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dom.
2014.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for waiting until Mike was gone because he wanted to let me live it down.
I thought he was gonna say it. I was gonna let him have a shine.
Oh, okay. So were you texting about this?
No. I saw him look at his phone. I saw him look it up.
Well, I'm glad somebody went and looked it up because I was going to say I don't remember him being on that team in 2016.
Maybe I don't even felt like he was here for most of a decade.
Because you know what? You know how I think I honestly remember this? I don't remember ever covering a game in person where he played.
Right.
Okay.
And my first full year was 14-15.
Okay, so that was the year he got traded at the deadline.
The year after.
13-14. Okay.
He was traded at the deadline the year that
That makes sense.
March 5th, 2014.
I don't want to say squeaked into the playoffs because they kind of didn't. They were a 3 seed, but the year they played the Rangers in the playoffs.
I was at game 4. I was at game 4 of that series.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah.
That was an interesting series in hindsight.
Yeah.
Well, it was. I don't know that team had really any business in going 7.
No.
They couldn't beat the Rangers at that time.
No.
I actually broke my phone from game 7 because they were down by a goal, weren't they? And I think Giroux just missed the net. Like there was maybe 5 seconds left, and he on a one-timer, and I threw my phone against the wall and it cracked.
Listen, that tracks from what I know about you, Dom.
Why?
Just getting angry about stuff, throwing your phone.
I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I don't remember much about that game 7 at all.
I think if I remember correctly, they were down 2 late in the third period. They scored a goal with a couple minutes left, and then they were pushing and they couldn't get it in.
Okay, I don't think it was as late in the third period, but yes, they did score in the third period. Do you know who scored the goal? Because I do know it on top of my head. It's an obscure name.
I was trying to think who's in that team.
The only thing I remember about this series was the Jason Akeson double minor.
That's who
scored
the
goal.
It,
right?
Yeah,
I thought it was. Okay, but he had a double minor in game 6, or was it in game 7?
Game 1.
It was in game 1.
Because game 1, the Flyers had the first goal. It was a tie. It was a tie game. It was 1-1 in the third period. And they were probably playing well enough that it was that next goal was going to win, probably kind of feeling. And he took a double minor with not much time.
And they scored on
probably
both
about half the period left. And they scored on both. They scored on both ends of it.
They scored on both halves of it and just iced the game. And I remember thinking that we wouldn't have even had to go to game 7 if he hadn't have done that.
Because Wayne Simmons was a beast in that series.
Oh, man, he was. But they were also buzzing when he committed the high stick. If you remember, they were buzzing.
That's what I'm saying. That game was shifting in their favor because it was tied late.
Bad penalty.
Do you remember who scored the first goal for the Rangers in game 7?
In 2015?
In 2014.
2014?
No, it wasn't Kreider. Kreider was on that team now, yes. Nope, not Stepan either. Okay.
He was probably on that team, though, right?
Yes, he was.
Who was it?
Dan Carcillo.
Oh, boy.
Dan the Trash Man Carcillo himself. Oh, man. That's not a name we like to remember out here.
Yeah, like I'm going to double check it really quick but I'm almost positive.
Listen, I remember Dan. I don't think you've been wrong on this show yet.
Oh, I've been wrong about. I just came on at the beginning of the show and said I misspoke.
Not about specific goals, not about who scored a goal when. Your memory is voice-like, man. I'd be willing to bet a large sum of money that Dan Carcillo scored that goal right now.
It's a blessing and a curse, I'll tell you.
Listen, I get it.
It's a blessing and a curse.
Trust me, I know a whole bunch of useless garbage too.
What year did I say? It's 2014.
14-15.
Oh, man, why did I just do that? It went back to the previous page. Go back to where I was. I want to see the schedule. Here it is. Game 7. April. I knew it was April 30th, too, because I was... Yeah, there it is. Dan Carcillo.
Yeah, you remember what date it was, but you're not sure who scored the first goal. Okay. Oh, man.
By the way, that was a game with the other Erik Gustafsson on the roster.
Oh, there you go.
The other
former Flyer.
The former Flyer Erik Gustafsson, not the current Flyer Erik Gustafsson, who, by the way, I think he's gonna keep his number. By the way, he wore 56 in Chicago and I believe in Calgary as well when he got traded there this year.
Who's the last Flyer to wear 56?
He's disappointing me very much though because he has a perfect opportunity to go to 26 or 29 and take the old number that Gustafsson had, the old Erik Gustafsson had.
Repurpose the jersey.
56.
Drew wore 56 for a season. It was like for 2 games.
Is he the last Flyer to wear it?
He might be one of the only ones to wear it, actually. I'm going to check that too because Hockey Reference is a beautiful thing and it has a jersey number database in it.
Yep.
So that's why I refer to it for everything.
Okay.
We're checking. We're checking to see if anybody else wore the number because Drew we know did.
Who's the last Flyer to wear 56 other than Claude Giroux?
What did Zubina wear? Was he like 5 or something? I remember
who?
Kubina?
Pavel Kubina?
Kubina, that's what it was. I forgot his name.
I think you just conflated Pavel Kubina and Dinas Zubras.
Yeah.
Zubina.
Did he wear? No, hold on. I'm browsing.
I thought he had a 5.
15, maybe?
Maybe.
I don't remember. After we get this little jersey thing, we do want to talk about World Juniors.
Yeah, we will.
We do have a little bit of World Juniors news. I'm just kind of.
Are you ready for the list of players who wore 56 in Flyers history?
Okay, are we going chronologically here, or?
Yeah, I'll go chronologically because Claude Giroux was the first. Claude Giroux wore it
the first.
Yes, in 2008 he was the first, and he only wore it for like 2 games because
for a hot second.
The next year he was a permanent member of the team. Does anybody remember the 2 or 3 games that Tyrell Goulbourne played in 2018?
Oh man. Tyrell Goulbourne was fun. He played in the Winter Classic, didn't he? Or the Stadium Series?
That's a good question. I don't remember him playing in that.
I'm pretty sure he played in the Penguin Stadium Series.
Are you sure you're not thinking of Justin Bailey?
I might be thinking of Justin Bailey.
Justin Bailey is one of the it drives me nuts because I recently, one of the things I did when we had nothing else to write about was I did a thing like I made a gallery on the jerseys over the years because the reverse retro came out and all that stuff. So I was trying to get a picture for the gallery for the Stadium Series jersey from 2 years ago now.
Okay.
Not the one that they've repurposed and uses the alternate, but
the actual
the orange one from the link game
with the patches. Yeah.
And you can't find a good picture that showcases front and back. Like I tried to find pictures that had a player facing forward and a player facing backward.
Okay, in
like
the same
almost
shot.
like celebrating a goal. Like here's the
same
back of the
shot,
jersey,
right.
here's the right. So I'm trying to find pictures, and I find the pictures of Giroux after he scores the overtime goal.
Yeah, the one hanging over your shoulder.
And the one, well, not that one specifically, because you can't see everything. So it's like one of the group shots afterwards. And I can't find a single picture because the first player I think who was off the bench celebrating was Justin Bailey. So Justin Bailey, number 27, is in a bunch of these shots, and I'm going, like, we really don't need to relive that.
We were all at that game, right? Kevin, you were there, right?
Well, I was, yeah, of course I was.
Okay.
There.
And I know me and Dom were both there because I drove them back. I drove Dom and Mike back to their car. They arrived at the game about 12 seconds before puck drop.
Yeah.
Tyrell
Goldborn for an hour.
Man,
Tyrell
Goldborn. But then you had a stadium cop bringing you food, so I don't want to hear
true.
it. So I don't want to hear it.
There you go. Talk about service.
Dom has friends in South Philly, if you know what I mean.
All right. Hey, you take whatever you can get. I mean, look, you know, I get the perks all the time with this stuff. I had to walk. All I had to do is walk behind me, and I could go get a hot dog, and I could get whatever, and I didn't have to pay
extra to sit suite level because the concourses at Lincoln Financial Field, the suite level concourses are heated.
Oh, that's nice.
So we paid extra to go sit suite level. So in between the periods, we, instead of listening to Keith Urban, we could go into the thing and try to dry out a little bit. It was perfect to the point where we could get just dry enough that going back out was miserable.
Hey, don't you go putting down Keith Urban.
I'm not a country fan. Listening to Keith Urban was not high on my priority list. He also dressed like a 40-year-old mom who was late for soccer practice. Tell me I'm wrong. Go look at the outfit. He looks like he should be driving a minivan.
I should remember what he wore because of the fact that, like, technically it was right in front of, like, the stage would have been right in front of where my seat was. But during the intermissions, we had full station representation that day.
Nice.
So for that game, like,
yeah, I'm sure you
some
did.
Of the show, some of the other show members came too and stuff like that. So I ran back with the station's program director who hosts the drive show that I'm on all the time.
Hey, listen, next time there's an outdoor game, I'll work at the station if I get a pass here. Full station representation. I'll be a part of that if you'd like.
I wish it was that easy.
Brody, give me a call.
Not Broads. Okay. I mentioned him on the show last show that I did mention the thing because it was the thing about the 5 games, you can rewatch in full or rewatching games in full. That was what the conversation was. Okay. But anyway, so I darted back and went and did an intermission live on Facebook with the show's program director. Or the station's program director. And it was funny because one of the first comments he makes is he goes, like, yeah, it's rated out there and stuff like that. No, you can't tell by looking at us because we're inside in the press box. So we don't have, we're not dressed like we're out in the cold. You know?
It was bad. It was ugly in the seats, man.
Yeah. By the way, Tyrell Goldborn last played an NHL game in November of 2018.
Oh man.
So he did not play in the stadium series.
No,
by the way,
okay.
All right. Any guess on who the third member of this list is before we get to Eric Gustafson?
Travis Sanheim.
No, but not a bad guess. Travis
Sanheim. He wore a weird number for a little bit, right? In preseason one year, maybe.
He might have been 50,
something 57. Like that. Okay, I was close. Listen, I'll take credit for that.
He was 70 or 75 like one year, and then they switched him because they try to move the numbers higher the closer they are to it. Which, by the way, is a whole nother discussion too. By the way, because as the season starts. Like Joel Farabee's probably going to make the team out of camp now, right?
Yeah, he might have a different number.
So he gets his pick.
Because
that's what they did with a lot of these guys. Like that's when you get to pick is once you actually make the team out of camp, you get to pick whatever number you wanted. Because
I think Lawton was like that too.
Because
Lawton wore a weird number. I think
Lawton wore 49.
49.
Okay. Yeah, early on, and then he switched to 21.
Yeah, I think he was wearing 49 in NHL 15.
I think when Robert Haig made his debut, he was 48, and then he switched to 8, like he wanted.
I remember he wore Danny Briere's number for a minute. I remember that being a thing.
Well, this would happen with Morgan Frost too. Morgan Frost is probably
and
I don't know. Morgan Frost might embrace the 48 thing. Like it fits.
I like the comparison.
That's like Ghost. Ghost was 53 and he kept it.
Yeah, he just stuck with it.
I don't think there have been as many Joel Farabee jerseys as there were Shane Gostisbehere jerseys after that first year.
There were a lot of Shane Gostisbehere
Ghost got popular very fast, and jerseys started popping up. And I think he had signed enough 53 jerseys and wrote the number enough that he's like, yeah, this sticks.
He was committed. He did that first Flyers Wives Carnival and went, oh, I guess I'm keeping it.
The number he wore in college wasn't available either, by the way. He wore 14 in college.
Okay.
Yeah, and with the Phantoms and the Miners, by the way.
That one was taken and also not going anywhere.
Correct. So he would have had to change anyway. I think he just looked at the assigned number, saw people were actually buying the jersey, and
I like
stuff
Morgan
like
Frost
that.
keeping 48 for the record. I like the comparison. He's got a little Danny B in him.
Joe Farabee wore a number in juniors, or not juniors, but like with the U.S. teams and
Like
stuff like
youth?
that. And in World Juniors and things like that, that I gotta go back and look, but it was in the 20s somewhere.
Okay.
Like I could see him bounce into 24,
24,
possibly
22.
27. Well, do they have a 22?
I don't think so. It's
Oh, they
22 is
didn't-
not retired, is it?
No, it's not retired, but
Okay.
I didn't know if they had one from last year or not. Dale Weiss wore it last.
Yeah. Okay. And he's been gone.
Yeah, don't you
long
love how I'm
enough.
pulling out all these names we wanted to forget?
Mike Knuble.
Mike Knuble
Oh,
was actually a
man.
good one, though. I liked Mike Knuble the first
Yeah.
time around anyway.
Mhm.
Second time around was not quite as memorable, but the first time
Has-
around was pretty fun.
Has any Flyer worn 12 since Simone Gagne left?
Yes.
Raffle.
Oh, Ralph. I'm so dumb. Oh my God. I completely forgot about Michael
Because
Raffle.
that number's not
Sorry,
even going
Mike.
anywhere. That number's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Sorry, Mike.
So wait, did we decide? Who do we figure out?
Yeah. Who was the fourth? Who was the fourth?
Wait. I
56?
want to guess. Wait.
Oh, okay.
So how recent?
Very
the
recent.
last-
If
Very
the
recent,
other,
'cause
if the
it
other
was-
was
It was in
Daily
2019, and I can tell you it
boy.
didn't last long.
oh,
So
no.
think very brief stint.
I have a guess before you give it up.
Oh boy. I don't know.
Is he in Russia now?
No.
Oh, it's not Mikhail Vorobiev. Okay.
No.
Okay,
Mikhail
okay.
Vorobiev wore, oh God, what number did he wear? He wore a number in the 40s.
49?
No, I don't think
No.
46 maybe.
44?
He wore 46. That's what it is. He wore
46,
46
you're right.
out of the preseason that year. And then this past year switched to 24. 24 is now, that's why I said for Farabee, 24 is open. If you
But
wanted to
well,
go.
right, it's now vacant, right?
But he wore something like that in World Juniors.
All right, so Dom, you don't have it. Do you have a guess
I
for the
don't
fourth
know.
one? No.
Okay, the Russia thing was an interest. I didn't know where you were going with that when you said that.
Okay.
Would it help you if I told you?
German Rubitsov?
No, he wore 50.
No.
Good guess, though.
Okay.
No, you're gonna laugh. Mike McKenna.
Jesus.
Oh boy.
He wore
Mike
50.
Black Helmet McKenna.
Oh man.
Good old.
He's a good follow on Twitter.
He's a great.
He
follow
is a
on
very
Twitter.
good follow on Twitter. I do
There are
like him a
some
lot.
really good goalie follows on Twitter. Like if you're not following Roberto
doing-
Luongo, you're wrong.
Isn't he's on the broadcast team for Vegas now
Yeah.
and does a really good job.
Bobby. Well, I think he's leaving that because he just got a job with Florida's new goalie division, right?
Did he?
I believe he was the spearhead behind that.
Was he? I didn't think so.
I believe he's going to be involved. I can't be 100% sure, but I believe I remember hearing that he was a big advocate.
I can't believe I'm Googling Mike McKenna right now.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I was talking about Roberto Luongo. I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought we were talking about Mike McKenna.
Oh,
Saying
no.
Mike McKenna.
I said you also need to be following Roberto Luongo on Twitter.
Oh no, we were
because
talking
he's
about Mike
a
McKenna.
fantastic
Mike
follow.
McKenna's on the broadcast team in Vegas.
Oh yeah. No, he's not. I'm sorry. No.
And an excellent follow, like because
totally.
he made a separate Twitter account that's just called like McKenna Live or something like that.
Yeah.
That he just tweets during games, and it's outstanding. And he tweets about goaltending, positioning, and
Right.
stuff like
He's
that. Like he
he's
really breaks
using
it
his
down well.
knowledge. Yeah.
And I'm sure he pays attention to some Flyers games because he did have that brief time where he
sure.
would have been
yeah,
around
he was-
Brian Elliott and Carter Hart and stuff
He
like
was
that.
he was tweeting a lot in the playoffs.
Probably playoffs, yeah.
He came back.
And I have a hard time thinking that a guy who follows the game this closely to the point where he's live tweeting games about goalies isn't at least a little bit interested in watching Carter Hart play.
I think they all are,
Right,
interested 'cause
especially
he's so positionally sound.
Right, especially after you
Goalies-
spend a couple of weeks in the room with him.
Any former goalie out there, let's this way. Let's throw back to a previous episode since we're remembering stuff, Kyle. When you had Jason Martinez on, he's a goalie.
Yep.
And he loves this type of breakdown stuff. They just did goalie week on the Flyers Twitter account and stuff like that.
Nobody
and it
loves
was
goalies
great.
more than other goalies.
Yeah, kind of.
Goalies love their little fraternity, and it's great.
By the way, speaking of goalies, I think I saw somewhere out here teams are required to carry 3 goalies permanently throughout the year, at least on your taxi squad.
I think that's
so the maximum
fantastic
29.
decision.
So
So the third is Alex
Alex
Lyon.
Lyon. Yeah. It's
You
pretty
know,
obvious at this point. Now they have to
know about Ustimenko or Sandstrom or Urson or any of these guys kind of down low.
Urson's still playing. Urson's still playing in Sweden, so he's accounted for.
So they're still playing.
Ustimenko and Sandstrom will probably, I say probably loosely because nothing confirmed on this angle, but probably be your AHL goalies this year. Assuming there's a season and assuming that it's
right. We're kind of operating under the assumption that there's going to be an AHL at this point.
And assuming that Lyon will be with the Flyers.
Well, I think Lyon's the clear choice because he's not going to get a ton of time, and you don't want to let one of the young kids just sit on the bench all year.
But what a great point that I just saw pop up on Twitter. Okay, so the Flyers are in that good position because they know Lyon's the third guy down the line. They can carry him throughout. Their goal is obviously not to play him, like to play the other two.
Right.
But what do you do if you're a team, like first of all, let's say a team like the Rangers who did have 3 a year ago, and what do you do if you're a team like Washington that just lost one of your goalies because he's not able to play? You're going to have to go out and try to find somebody available.
You call your ECHL team and get some guys on your roster.
The point is that the signings that teams are going to have to make to get a third guy that they actually can trust in and go, we may need to play you this year. We need to at least carry you.
Yep.
And let's put it this way. Do the Flyers want to carry Alex Lyon on as that third goalie the whole year?
They would rather him be in the AHL mentoring the two younger guys.
I wouldn't even say to mentor, to get some playing time. You want to throw him in.
That's fair.
You need to have another guy who you sit there and you go, you know what? I know, like even pull Sandstrom from the minors and say, you're the third guy down the line while Elliott and Hart are perfectly fine.
I was about to say, I wonder if you see some rotation there.
Right. Just to get the other guys some starts.
That becomes a lot easier if we hear about AHL teams traveling with their NHL counterparts like we've heard rumors of.
Well, and to my understanding, by the way, the taxi squad thing has to be flexible. You're not allowed to just keep a guy on there the whole time and say you practice with it the whole time, but you never play. You either play the guy or you send him back to the minors.
Right.
And by the way, your taxi squad is considered AHL
money
and rules.
Right.
So if you send a guy from your NHL roster and say he's no longer one of the 23, but he's on the 4 to 6 man taxi squad, he has to pass through waivers if he's waiver eligible.
Is that confirmed? Like, do we know that for sure? Or is that language that they're still working out?
Nothing is completely confirmed, but like every detail that keeps coming out feels like another piece that they're confirming to this, that they keep papering, so to speak. I mean, now that, and I think people know this by now, that we record mid to late morning.
Sure.
So we're past that 12 o'clock point. So as we speak, a meeting should be happening with the NHL Board of Governors right now.
And we're not going to have the news drop on that. So that's
but stuff is going to get finalized as things go. So that's why we are calling it the league is pretty much back, because the only thing that really hasn't been done yet, and I'm sure even in the time since Friday, the only things that haven't been done yet are putting all of this down on paper so it can be agreed upon and voted on, and the voting itself.
Right.
Other than that, I don't think they have a lot, because
which is expected to go fairly smoothly.
Well, right. Because I think, deadlines, whether internal or otherwise, breed action. I think they knew what the deadline was after pushing back from January 1st as a start date. They knew what the deadline was for January 13th. They knew. Yeah. And I think that they knew that they were facing some backlash for the NBA figuring a lot of details out so quickly
and starting
and them sitting here going, well, we're still going to wait and see how it goes.
Right. And now the pressure's on because the NBA is playing at least preseason games. Like it's happening.
Next
the
week.
NBA starts Tuesday.
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. But they are like currently already back in buildings playing basketball.
Let's put it this way. People on Twitter that I was watching were freaking out about Sixers preseason games. They're going to be really freaking out on Wednesday when the real thing starts.
Yep.
Especially with some of the guys, like some of the stuff I didn't really watch. I didn't watch the preseason games because I was watching some other stuff, because I think I was watching some more college football or stuff like that during the whole stretch of it or whatever. But I'd be interested to check them out. I heard a lot of good things about a lot of new pieces.
Sure. And we talked a while ago about the fact that the NHL is going to miss that, quote unquote, first league back excitement, right? Like if the situation was reversed and the NBA was gearing up to start in January 13th and they were still trying to hammer out a vote and the NHL already had all their stuff figured out and were starting, they'd be getting a lot of this hype here.
Yes and no, because yes, it feels like they're again like the late one.
And I know the NBA is already a bigger league and was just going to get more attention.
But the NBA also had one key problem that like we talked about last time. The NBA had one less problem than the NHL had to deal with, and that was how many teams need to come away from Canada. It wasn't hard for the NBA to say, all right, so Toronto can't play there. What do we do? What other city has an NHL arena or has an arena already ready to go that we can just use? Tampa sounds good. That's where they go. Like how hard, like logistics were so much easier for the NBA to pull that off than the NHL was, because the NHL had to account for those 7 teams and what they were going to do. And to be literally talking about earlier this week, and you guys know this, I threw stuff in the group text throughout, to be literally talking earlier this week about the possibility that there was not even going to be hockey in Canada, and they were going to move all these teams down to the US and have to find places for them to play.
Yep.
Like,
it's not going to be easy.
The fact that that was a possibility tells you how difficult that road was for the NHL. I will totally fault the NHL for being a little late to the party, for spending 2 weeks talking about money and then coming to an agreement and going, well, we're not going to do anything about it anyway. Like that felt like a waste of time for 2 weeks.
Right. So they've announced top 4 from each division, right?
Yes.
Have they announced that at that point the playoffs will stay divisional for the first 2 rounds?
Yes. So in other words, what you're going to get is,
so you don't need a bubble until the conference finals.
I guess. I don't even know if it's by that point. Maybe they won't.
They might have vaccines at that point, right?
Well, not even that, but like, because you're going to be cutting it down so far, like it's only going to be 4 teams in a conference final. So you're right. Like you might form this very small bubble,
right,
in time for that.
Play 2 rounds. By that you're in there for 3 weeks, and everyone gets to go home.
Either that, or quite honestly, by that point, you might have figured out so much with your travel schedule that you just find a way to move a couple of teams back and forth and not make it. Let's put it this way: the NFL has had no qualms at all about saying, like, this afternoon, as we're recording, we're going to watch, the Eagles game will be on this afternoon. They're in Arizona this week. No, there's nobody in the NFL that said, we have a problem with a team from Philadelphia all the way on the East Coast traveling to Arizona. Right. They haven't had that problem. And they don't seem like they're going to have that problem in the NBA either. They're going to limit some travel, but not near as much as the NHL is trying to do.
Right.
So maybe by the time you get to 4 teams left, you say, you know what? You go wherever you have to go.
You're all okay,
right? It's Vegas against Colorado, or well, not Colorado, because that won't be the case.
We're talking about May, June, July. So hopefully the world is just a little bit of
it's Vegas, Dallas. If we say it's Vegas, Dallas against Tampa Bay, Boston, then Tampa Bay's flying to Boston and playing games in Boston and vice versa. And Dallas and Vegas should be swapping places. And when the Stanley Cup final happens, if it's Boston, Dallas, then
I think
swap cities again too. Because by that point, it's 4 teams. You've cut it down so much. The rest of it is strictly interdivision, but it does create some really fun matchups, because it'll be 1, 4, 2, 3 within the division. Then it'll be the other. And then I think the conference final, or the conference finals, is based off, because it's not going to be strict conferences. Like, we're not talking Western Conference, Eastern Conference,
because all the divisions are their own mini
everything's going to be mixed up a little bit. Like,
right.
Look, it just so happens that it works out that the Flyers are going to play in a division that is all Eastern Conference teams. Right. It just works out that way. But Tampa Bay's not. Tampa Bay's playing in a division that's going to be mixed. And now I think this, whatever you want to call it, Pacific, however you want to look at it, that will probably be a lot of West Coast teams. But then again, you're going to get a Canadian division, which is typically 4 Western Conference teams, 3 Eastern Conference teams.
Right.
So that's a mix. So they're just going to,
we don't even know what the Eastern Conference is going to be.
So the conference final is going to be completely reseeded.
Right.
It's just the top percentage point. It's points percentage 1, 2, 3, 4.
Kind of like they did in the bubble.
Yeah. So it's just points percentage 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 and 3 will play each other, and 1 and 4 will play each other, and the winners go on and play in the Stanley Cup final.
So are people also going to call this one not a real Stanley Cup, or?
I think that's done. I think that should be over.
Okay.
Look at what worked the first time around. You somehow awarded the Stanley Cup last year, and you awarded it to a team that everybody thought for the past 3-4 years was the best team. So I don't think there's a lack of integrity to the way it's done. It's still, by the way, whatever the conference final is, 1, 4, 2, 3, whoever it ordered, like whatever order it comes in, it could be 3 Eastern Conference teams playing each other, technically, as we know it.
Right.
It doesn't take away from the fact that they will probably, that by that point, it will have always been 7-game series. It will be the best teams.
We'll know who the best teams are. Yeah.
And look, at the very least, like I told a buddy this the other day, at the very least, this top 4 divisional thing and playing within division means you don't get a Tampa Boston series in the first round. Like, the fact that a Vegas Colorado or Vegas St. Louis or Colorado St. Louis series has to happen in the first round because that division is stacked,
right,
is awful, quite frankly.
Yeah, but honestly, with how stacked the, whatever the Flyers division is going to be, you're still getting insane matchups in the first round, right?
Oh, yeah.
If Tampa and Philly are the 2 and 3 seeds, right? Like, say Boston.
Tampa's not in that division, but
I'm sorry.
But Boston, right? Like, let's say Boston and Philly is 2 and 3, and Washington Islanders is 1, 4. Then those good teams are going home.
2 great teams are going home.
Potentially, yeah.
It's crazy. Wow, but it's wild. We're gonna see some.
I think
we're gonna see some hate this year.
Yeah, I do think one thing it changes too, by the way, as compared to last playoff, that makes it even more realistic, is you don't have the possibility of a team that was a 12 seed creating an upset situation and kind of being in over their head once they get to the next portion of their playoff push.
Right.
Like this is going to legit be 4 teams that are tops in these divisions, then playing each other. And then the one winner out of it comes out of it. And you're literally playing, it's like 1 seeds coming out of each of those sections. 1, 1, 1, 1 playing as 1, 2, 3, 4. And who gets the top spots, who gets the final 2 spots to play for the Stanley Cup. You're really going to get a legitimate winner this year, even more so than some other years where a team gets hot at the right time or whatever. It can still be that way, but these are teams that had to be the top 4 in their division the whole way through.
Yeah, and a division where all you're doing is pushing up against the rest of the division. Like it's all grinding and at the very least, to a winner.
And the reason I say it could be more realistic is because if the number 1 team comes out of this southern whatever division like Tampa, and they were clearly the best team in the division, but you get 4 teams in this metro style division that were close the whole year. Like let's say Boston, Philly, and pick the other one here, the Islanders were separated by within 4 or 5 points, all 3 of them.
Right.
So they all qualify as that they could have been the number 1 seed, but they're going to be 1, 2, and 3. Then and let's say that they have as many points or more points than 2, 3, and 4 in this other division that they would play against, right. Or that Tampa comes out of. Then it legitimizes the fact that any of those teams could have won that division specifically and still be one of the top 4 left. Not right. This upstart team that was 4th has 7 teams that were better in points in the year and somehow made it to the conference finals. It could still happen, but I feel like it cuts down on the possibility so much more.
And the playoffs are always a crapshoot, and like the quote unquote worst teams can definitely win series, and that won't change.
Yeah,
but I definitely think you're right that it's less likely, because especially something that we're not really talking about is by the time they get to the playoffs, where you're playing against a team that you saw 6, 7, 8 times this year.
It's pretty much confirmed by this point. You're going to have seen these teams 8 times.
And the thing about that, how many good coaches are in this division, right? We've talked about this. We've talked about this on the show recently.
This is an elite coaching division.
You're going to thank God we don't have to deal with John Quenneville or John Tortorella, right? Like we didn't end up with Florida, and we got rid of Columbus, thankfully. But we have Barry Trotz in the division.
Right. So what was that listing? Because it's Barry Trotz, Alain Vigneault,
Bruce Cassidy.
Bruce Cassidy, who just won Jack Adams, by the way.
Peter Laviolette in Washington.
Lindy Ruff in New Jersey.
Who cares in Buffalo?
No, but believe it or not, who cares in Buffalo? Because Ralph Kruger being in Buffalo is why they got Taylor Hall.
I know. But I still don't expect Buffalo to really be much of a player, honestly. But
I hear you, but
all these guys, right? Do you want to face a Peter Laviolette team that has 8 games worth of film on you, or a Barry Trotz team that has 8 games worth of film on you already?
You know who else you left off that list, by the way?
Okay,
Mike Sullivan, 2-time Stanley Cup winner. Like
you got to give him his props.
There's a lot of hardware among these coaches.
This is an elite division from a coaching perspective.
And they take out a guy. Like think about how they take out a guy like Tortorella.
Yep.
Who was in the Metro division and has a lot of those accolades to his name as well. Jack Adams winner, Stanley Cup, all that type of stuff. One of the winningest coaches in history.
Yeah. Yeah. This division would be even crazier.
They'd be even crazier if that was the way it went. But then you'd have to figure out what you were doing with Buffalo.
All right. They can play in the Canadian division. It's fine. They're all coming south of the border anyway.
No, they're not.
I know.
I actually don't think they are now. I think that they've actually.
I know.
I will say I'm pleasantly surprised by the fact that Ontario and Quebec are okay with all of this to allow this. Whatever the protocols
the
are.
The OHL is even going to let them hit each other.
If they even have a season at this rate. I mean, I don't even know when the target dates are anymore. At least the AHL is still on February for right now.
No, I meant the NHL players. They're even going to let the NHL players hit each other.
Oh, that's right.
I'm very proud of Ontario. They're not trying to get no contact NHL games.
Because I think they know. I mean, come on, it's a professional sport.
Yeah, well, MLSE just called the Ontario government and went, no.
Yeah, pretty much.
And the Ontario government, yeah, okay.
So speaking of Canada, do we want to talk about World Juniors really quick?
Yeah, let's hit on World Juniors real quick.
Because World Juniors is because World Juniors is in a bubble in Edmonton,
and this tournament's going to be a lot of fun.
By the way, the arena looks like they didn't even take down the stuff from the playoffs. Didn't. It just looks the same. The tarps over the seats look exactly the same. It's really funny.
I'm excited to watch U.S. Russia on Christmas, 9:30.
Yeah, pretty little bit later on, but it's gonna be fun. Yeah,
that's a really good game. Okay. So I'm a nerd out here a little bit. I am very, very, very excited to watch Spencer Knight play.
Okay. I
think he has put up absurd numbers at Boston College. I think he's got a 9.44 save percentage. It's something absolutely ridiculous. And his goals against is somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.5. He's the goalie for Team America and was taken 11th by the Florida Panthers last year. Probably going to be the successor for Sergei Bobrovsky down there whenever his time comes to an end. But Spencer Knight is a special goaltender.
Who was the because you sent the list, you sent us something over the other day that was all three goalies on the U.S. roster have their birthdays are separated by like 6 days or something like that.
Yeah. So
okay, I wanted to sit there and I didn't make this comment, but the comment I wanted to make back to you on that was I don't like whoever the third guy on that list is the most irrelevant goalie on the planet right now because Spencer Knight's going to be the leading guy, but Dustin Wolf was the successor to Carter Hart at Everett in WHL.
And it was solid,
and had really good numbers too. So he's going to play too, probably at some point if they need to give the other guy a break.
If I'm not wrong, wasn't he a contender for WHL goalie of the year? Dustin
probably
Wolf?
Yeah, because he had some he played just as well at times as Carter Hart did. He really filled that void and maybe playing behind Carter Hart, and they had a good team all together too. I'm not taking anything away from Everett,
Dustin Wolf was born April 16th, 2001. Spencer Knight was born April 19th, 2001. And Logan Stein, your third stringer, was born April 26th. Right.
He should have been Mr. Irrelevant.
You should have been born a week earlier, kid. You might have had a chance.
No, I don't think you would have had a chance either way. Spencer Knight. Spencer Knight's
a very good goalie.
Spencer Knight's on his way. Dustin Wolf, it surprises me because he was a 7th round pick in the NHL draft.
He went under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, he did fly.
Well, I think it's because he only really had one season to be the starter.
Well, true, but I was surprised that he still technically could be the starter. He can still play
before he got drafted. I mean,
right?
He only had 1 year to carry the workload in Everett before he got drafted.
Before his draft year, yeah, that's true.
Right. Other than that, he was Carter Hart's backup.
I noticed how you're not burying the lead, Kyle, with the talking about the U.S. team first because the U.S. team has most of our attention. I would say.
Listen,
among Flyer fans.
Yeah, that is certainly worth saying.
I mean, as expected, Cam York and Bobby Brink are on the roster, and it's going to be fun to watch. And it's going to be fun to watch these guys because these two guys are probably going to have much more significant roles than they did last year, as we had talked about 2 weeks ago, Kyle.
For sure,
and it's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun to watch them. Cam York is somebody a lot of people out there I've seen buzz on Twitter. A lot of people are excited to see this kid.
And so Juniors,
I've watched some Michigan games. The excitement is real. Definitely look forward to watching these games. He's going to be a stud.
World Juniors it's a weird tournament because for a week and a half or 2 weeks, all of Canada watches this tournament. I'm not sure how many of our listeners are aware of quite how big a deal this tournament is in Canada. Amongst hockey fans.
Oh, for sure.
Appointment viewing, right? It starts on Christmas. Every year people start watching World Juniors on Christmas. It's a tradition. It's locked with the holidays.
I want a ratings report when this is over because now not only is it something that is
huge,
not only is it appointment television in Canada, but also the fact that it isn't a Canadian city this year where no fans can go.
Yep.
Means that everybody's just going to be crowding around their TVs to try to watch this thing.
This is what kind of thing.
This is what they do, at least in Canada.
Canadians crowd into bars to watch World Junior games. But I
do think it's gotten more play and publicity in the U.S.
Certainly.
Certainly. This year, I think they're really going to play it up because of the fact that since there is no NHL season, at least leading up to this,
there's a lot of storylines going on.
But they're airing the entire tournament, every game on NHL Network in the U.S. in addition to TSN. Wait. So I can't wait to see this. And like I said, you got two guys on the U.S. roster that you want to watch. A recent draft pick, Emil Andre, made the Swedish roster. Now, granted, the Swedish roster is in a little bit of a concerning situation. They had 2 staff members test positive after they got to the bubble.
Oh boy.
So they are not having an exhibition game. The whole team is quarantining through the 21st or 22nd,
hoping
I
that
think.
nobody else pops up.
Well, because Germany had 8 players test positive. So that virtually, by the way, because that canceled preseason games or pre-tournament games.
Right.
Sweden's not playing at all. The U.S. is playing Finland in a game on Tuesday night, I think it is. Okay. I have to go back and check because they revised that whole portion of the schedule.
Yeah, sure.
The other parts of it I am very well familiar with at this point because starting on Christmas Day, you mentioned it, Kyle, the game against Russia, 9:30.
Yep.
Already you want to sit down.
That's appointment television, by the way.
Yes.
If you're a hockey fan.
And Russia's supposed to be very good, by the way.
You should be in front of your television watching the U.S. play the Russians in World Juniors. It's going to be a good game.
Now, the Saturday after it starts, so the day after Christmas, which, by the way, great that it's a Saturday because nobody has to do anything.
Right.
Right. Sweden's on at 2. U.S. is on at 9:30. I don't really find, like, some of these games, like U.S.-Austria probably isn't going to be much of a contest, but it'll be a great showcase nonetheless. Sure. I'm really looking forward to this game on New Year's Eve at 9:30, Sweden-U.S. That puts all 3 of the Flyers prospects on the same game at the same time.
That'll be fun.
And then obviously when the actual tournament portion starts and you get to the actual teams that made it out of the groups and where they rank and actually playing in a single elimination style, quarterfinals is an all-day thing on Saturday. It's going to be like bubble hockey, truthfully. I mean, it isn't a bubble, but it's going to be like bubble hockey in the first part of the playoffs.
Absolutely.
First game is at 12. Last game is at 10:30. Sit back and enjoy your day. And then middle of or early part of the following week, the January 4th, you have the 2 semifinals at 6 and 9:30. Bronze medal is at 5:30 on Tuesday and January 5th, by the way. I feel like I should give a date there too.
Yeah.
Which of course, by the way, we'll be able to talk about this on our next show because
it will be mostly wrapped up, but we will have a little bit of we might talk about the finals a little bit, kind of how the tournament.
We're going to be able to talk about the semifinals and who could make and you know what? Because here's the thing: anybody who makes the semifinal gets a shot to play for a medal, whether it's a bronze or a gold.
Because they do the bronze medal game for sure.
Right. So if both U.S. and Sweden make it to that point, then we definitely have something to talk about because we'll talk about the numbers of these kids, what the prospects are doing, and then kind of see who has a shot at going there.
I'd be surprised if at least the U.S. wasn't there. I expect both teams to be there.
Depending on the structure, and I know that they do once they get to the quarterfinals, they mix it all up and stuff like that. But the U.S. and Canada are in separate groups, and I'm kind of holding out for the U.S.-Canada gold game this year.
I think they're going to try.
A lot of people,
let's be honest.
A lot of people think that that Canada's pretty much got this thing. I mean, Canada's really deep, and they've been able to pull.
Good team.
Let's put it this way: picture, if you will, that Canada just named their team captain, and it's a guy who will be playing for the Chicago Blackhawks 2 weeks later.
Yep.
You know, like that's insane. The U.S. does not have a guy like that.
No,
they have strictly prospects, but it doesn't take away from the fact that the U.S. has a pretty darn good roster too.
And Canada's also lost some pretty big pieces to COVID tests. So like there is some, well, they're not exactly at 100% here.
And speaking of Team Canada, by the way, with the all the stuff that they're going through, 2 names we have to bring up because neither of the Flyers prospects made that roster. We kind of said we thought Tyson Forrester had a shot. He was, as I'm going through it, was more of an understanding he was a bit more of a long shot than we thought. Okay. I think we just assumed first round pick he's going to probably make it. Apparently, also there was a lot of stuff that had to do with their cut due to COVID tests.
One of them, Canada's very deep.
To my knowledge, one of the positive tests that they ended up having was a Flyers prospect, Mason Millman, who, by the way, 2 days ago
signed his
ELC. Yeah. And he's the first member of the 2019 draft class to sign.
So if he did test positive for COVID, I don't think the Flyers are particularly worried about it.
Either that or he had a positive test, but he had nothing wrong, or maybe it came back or maybe it was just a contact thing,
right.
And it wasn't a positive test, whatever the case may be. He didn't make the roster. He was always, I had told you last time we did a show, he was going to be a long shot anyway. It wasn't likely.
Right.
So that wasn't a surprise. Forrester was a little bit of a surprise. I kind of wanted to see him play alongside of a lot of these other really big names. But
yeah, I would have liked to see him get a shot.
But you know what? He hasn't played since March, and I'm sure that had played a factor.
Well, listen, he's a Flyers prospect. He better get used to being snubbed from Team Canada.
Well, and let's put it this way, by the way. Kirby Dach being on this team, being the captain, by the way, was playing playoff games in July, right?
A couple of months ago, right?
In August, right?
Yeah.
Literally played 2 playoff series. So I don't think that his time off was nearly as impactful as somebody who was drafted this year, who literally hasn't played since March. Possibly.
No, definitely not. No.
So it's disappointing because I've kind of gotten used to Canada having at least one Flyers prospect every year for a while.
They made up for it with 2 Americans.
Well, and it's weird to see the number as low as it is. Like, it's been a long time since the Flyers have had like 3 prospects in World Juniors, because most of
everyone's
their picks,
graduated.
Well, exactly. Everybody's graduated, and this is where everything is right now. So,
right at a certain point, you stop trying to add prospects because the guys you have are.
Consider this tournament. All you listeners out there and viewers out there, consider this tournament your appetizer to the NHL season, because this is coming a week or 2 before the NHL is back.
And it's going to be a good one. And
so consider this your appetizer and getting yourself a little bit ready for hockey to be back on your television and stuff like that. I'm anxious to see if everything else that goes with hockey season for me comes back. I don't know what media is going to be like. That could be fun. I certainly hope that fantasy hockey is a thing this year.
It will be.
Because I missed out. I'm missing on that a little bit. I also taking the hunch. I'm going to share some of these with you guys later, by the way, because okay. I like your feedback, and I know you guys like them. I'm trying to rework some graphics.
Okay.
So we need new graphics for a new year. There's new players. I got to take care of some stuff with it.
I've
tried some different methods with it and tried to do some different style options and things like that. Because I want to create, and Kyle, we talked about this briefly off air about some things we're trying to work on around the show as well, possibly.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to create graphics that are just player information, not just like goal graphics.
Sure.
And some stuff works for the player graphics better than the goal graphics.
Yes.
That takes too much away from what we're trying to do and things like that. So it's making choices of what I do about an image. Do we cut this one out? Like, do we just silhouette the guy? Like, how do we do this?
Right.
What do I do with all this? So I was doing some mock-ups. So I'll have some Claude Giroux goal graphics to share soon.
All right. We love to see it.
That you guys can tell me which one you prefer, and all that stuff. And basically what I'm going to do is I'll probably share with you the ones were used last year and then go, here's one new version and here's a second new version. Which one looks better?
Okay.
That thing.
Yeah.
And see where it goes. So it's going to be fun that I've got all these other things surrounding me. I'm going to get back to being busy again. I was just thinking about this like not long ago, how I definitely I missed during this whole time, and more so since we've done since the playoffs weren't our normal, at least for me, it was very abnormal, that I miss the going and watching a game in person. I miss being around people who are in the press box regularly, other writers, other media members who you get to see and get to know a little bit. That's the stuff I miss. I was really starting to not miss the scheduling of it, where you start to schedule your life around the game schedule. I was kind of just getting used to it and being like, it's not that bad. It's not that bad to have to just sit there and go, I don't have to worry about that specific game. I can just kind of come and go as I please on what games are on. Yeah. And it's not that big of a deal. And now it's about to come back. I'm happy it's back. It gives me that sense of purpose. I've talked about that too.
I think we're all excited. It's coming back.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. I mean,
it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good watching Flyers hockey again.
Yeah, and it's good. It's good to see. It's gonna be good to see this team come back and just see what they are and where they are and how it goes, because I think we really liked the direction it was going last year. I think we all want to see them get to a playoffs. And the last time, I know that the last time shortened season was in our vocabulary. It wasn't exactly the most fun year either in Flyers history.
No,
that was kind of a disappointing year, and that was fresh off. I think that was fresh off of one of the best years that we could remember. I mean, it was the last time they won the playoff series before this year. That was that 2012 playoff, and then all of a sudden we had nothing, and then 13 was not fun, and we expected a whole lot more from that team.
Well, and we do expect a whole lot from this team too, and we will talk about that in the new year.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get out of here, I think it's about time we wrap up this little holiday special here. We're getting close to the end of the show. Kevin, I believe you mentioned you had something to say kind of about the show, because it is episode 100, and we're doing a little bit of a celebration, and we're not going to spend a ton of time on it.
Yeah, and well,
we're not going to spend a ton of time.
Mike's not here to listen to it in person anymore. He's going to have to listen to it. No,
he'll hear it in post.
He'll hear it in post. But so I had a couple things I wanted to say about this, because 100 episodes is a big deal. So first off, I have to say congratulations to you guys, and specifically Kyle and Mike here. This has been your baby for sure. And
for sure.
That's a little weird to say since Mike has 2 babies. I am as close to an original member of the Sports Talk Philly family as it gets. Okay. I say that the original website was started like 2 months before I got there. It was only Phillies. It was called Philadelphia at that point in time. And it was only a few months before I latched on to that and really kind of took that to where, it became something that I was associated with on a regular basis.
Right.
And when we changed the name over and went 4 for 4 and changed the name to Sports Talk Philly and all that type of stuff to combine this group of people who write about it and do all 4 major sports. And I was there then, and I've been a part of that so much so that next year is going to be my 10th year doing it. Like wow. That's how long I've been doing this. Wow. That says a lot. So I bring that up because building something from the ground up is hard. It's not an easy thing to do. It's honestly the reason it's honestly the reason I'm on here, because twice I've tried to do something like this. I always felt like the website needed a Flyers podcast, but I couldn't really handle the workload of writing a bulk of the articles, covering the games, going to a bunch of the games, hosting and planning a podcast. It's a lot of time.
It makes a lot of sense.
And all that stuff like that. And when things were getting started this past, and I have to kind of watch the way I like put notes in here because I noted this season, and this season is now going to be 3 weeks from now. So when things started last season, I had floated the idea to out there, I want to get a podcast started back up, but I really would prefer if somebody else was taking the reins on that. And all I had to do was say, I'll get it up on the website. You send me a file, I'll get it up on the website, and I'll pop on at least a couple times, throughout the process, or maybe I'll become a full part of it. However it works, I'd like to be a full, I honestly, in the beginning it was, I'd like to be a full part of it, but even if I'm not, it doesn't matter. I just think we need something that consists of an audio format to go with all of the writing. And I have to throw a shout out to our site owner, Frank Close, because he's the one who sent me the link to you guys.
I thought I remember you telling me that.
Yeah. I believe episode 50 was the one I listened to.
I believe it was our first one back.
And I sent the message, and that started all of this. I can't even begin to tell you guys how glad I am that I did send that message.
The timing was incredible.
How excited I am to be a part of this little family you guys have that, and including, everybody who's ever been on this show. Dom, it's been great talking to you through the group chat and all that stuff. Like I talk to you guys more during a game than I talk to other people sometimes. Right. And it's fun to have that back and forth with you guys throughout and with news. Free agency this year was a blast because we actually talked during free agency. That was great. So Mike kind of already spoiled this earlier, but I'll say it again anyway. My first appearance on the show was episode 52.
Yeah.
I did a handful of them when you guys needed me to. Whenever you guys would invite me on, I was happy to do it every single time. And now that I am a regular part of the show, right around the start of all this and I became right around the start of the craziness in this world as it's been this past few months.
Yeah.
And you guys had me join in for that first show after the news of the shutdown. And then from there, I think it's pretty much been every week other than
I think it's been every week except for when you got married.
I took 1 week off for Mother's Day, and I took a couple weeks off when you did, you would have Mertitas on or something like that. Which I think even now at this point, if you ever had a guest like that again, I think you would just bring me on.
You would just be on.
It wouldn't matter anymore. And we've since done live shows. Doing live shows was fun. It's been a lot of fun. And
stay tuned on those, listeners, because there might be more of those in the new season, and that's something that we're not announcing yet.
Kyle and I have been talking a lot about some stuff.
Things are happening. Things are bubbling.
And Mike gave a thumbs up to something I put in the group text that makes me think we're going a certain direction very soon.
But
probably time to start the new year.
We'll get there when we get there, and that's an announcement for the new year, certainly.
Okay.
But I do actually want to tell my side of that little story real quick, just why you mentioned the Frank sending you the link and, getting us in. On our side, we had just decided to come back, and it's going to be me and Mike Sr. And Mike Jr., producer Mike, was attempting to try to get on more, and whatever, busy life, I understand.
Yes.
But we were coming back. We were not resuming our relationship with our previous partner. We had a partner during the original run of the show, kind of a distribution site, kind of like Sports Talk Philly partner has been for us. We partnered with somebody else, and that relationship hadn't gone particularly well. and we were kind of looking for another site to pair up with. And then out of the blue, the skies parted and the chorus sang, and we get a DM from Sports Talk Philly, and boom, the only thing you asked, you didn't want to change the show, you didn't want to blah blah blah. You asked for two things. You asked that we shout out sportstalkphilly.com in our plugs, which I usually remember to do.
Always on the board behind me.
And you asked to be on the show sometimes.
Yes, and
you asked to be on the show
all the time.
Sometimes, and I believe the little unspoken agreement we had was that it was roughly once a month.
Yes,
but
which was fine with me in the beginning, and then as it went further and further,
I will tell you something that I haven't told you before.
Okay.
After the first show, I talked to Mike and said he's going to be on a lot.
Okay.
I told him I didn't want to wait another month to invite you on again. And after the second time, I wanted to ask you literally then to jump on every week. But I didn't really know you all that well, and we were still kind of getting to know each other. So I didn't want to be like, hey,
we know each other.
This giant commitment.
Well, I mean, we're talking last October at this point. It was because my first show, because I looked up the episode number to know it. My first show was the day before Joel Farabee made his NHL debut, because we actually got the news.
We got the news like live-ish.
So we had to go back, put a altered segment at the front of the show to say we found out during the show. So here's our talking about Joel Farabee for the Monday drop.
We've done that a small handful of times in the history of the show.
Little did I know, by the way, that at that point that the Monday news drop would become such a regular thing.
I could have told you
that every single time we would record a show, we would find out something.
It used to be way worse because Mike and I, when we first started the show, we used to record on Monday morning. So the news would actually drop between recording the show and publishing the show.
You know what else?
That was a heartbreaker.
You know what else I can't even imagine with you guys either is you guys used to do 4 for 4 talk at the very beginning too, and trying to do 4 different sports where the news drop is possible in any one of them. We're already having this problem with one sport.
Yeah. Yeah, see, but then the other side to look at that is somebody's news always drops on Saturday too. So we get to talk about the Saturday news every week, even though we missed the Monday news.
That's true. That's why I said I fully appreciated the NHL doing the Friday night news drop this time around instead of the Monday news drop. Because I literally, when we said things weren't going so well, I texted everybody and I 100%
said that it was coming
Monday. Yep. Bank on it. And they beat me to. Although it was funny because I was at an event earlier this week. I didn't even plan to talk about this part, but I was at an event earlier this week. The Philadelphia Flyer Warriors. You guys know who they are. The veteran team that they put together. Brad Marsh is the coach of the team. Things like that. They hosted a toy drive at a New Balance store in Cherry Hill that happens to be owned by a relative of mine through marriage. So not my own relative, but through marriage. And I've gone over to their place a lot. He happens to be really good friends with Bob Kelly. And so Bob Kelly was there. Brad Marsh is there. And I literally am having a conversation with Brad Marsh on Tuesday night this past week and saying, I've heard they think they're going to get it done by the end of the week. And Friday comes out the drop. I've never felt smarter in my life than when that I told a guy who actually has ties to the organization. I heard it's going to be done around the end of the week, possibly. And there it was on Friday.
See, but where was the transition? I heard it's going to be done by the end of the week. Why don't you come on this podcast and talk about it?
I don't go that far when I'm first connecting with these people.
I know.
Nonetheless, so I'm trying to figure out where I was in all this. I had notes and I'm lost.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
You just told the story about getting.
So being now that like being on the show and not, but it's like I like it's so much fun doing the show anyway, and it's been a lot more fun and less of a burden to me knowing that everybody has a role here, as opposed to like I can write my articles throughout the week, cover the team, do my other thing.
You get to just show up and talk hockey if that's
keep
what you want to do.
Come in and then just put it all out there for everybody who listens to the show and be the so-called expert. And I say that like I say it like that because I don't. No, I trust me. I keep.
You're the voice in the room.
I say this modestly. I don't claim to know it all. I don't want to know it all. I just want to.
You're too modest to do it, but I'm doing it for you. Kevin is very intelligent when it comes to hockey. Follow him on Twitter at Kevin_Durso.
Thank you for the plug. I just want to come on here, speak the truth that's out there based on what we know, speak my mind about it, give a couple opinions on stuff, and have an outlet to do it. And you guys definitely give me that for sure.
Yeah, we do.
Now I'm getting into specifics here. Kyle, You're the driving force behind this show because you steer this conversation in great places. You ask, we've talked about this before because Mike Sr. had said stuff like this. You ask questions that get you really thinking. You keep us on track. You give us relevant topics every week. We haven't in my personal opinion, I'm sure you would agree, I don't think we've had a boring episode yet. Every time Mike even cracked the joke on here the other week. When you came on, you said, we don't have a lot to talk about this week. And then we spent an hour on
2 hours
retro
talking about retro jerseys.
And the show was almost 2 hours long and we had no news. We literally said, well, we got no news, but we're going to talk about reverse retro jerseys. 2 hours later, the show's over. I'm sending this one again. He's listening in post-production, but so for Mike,
you, by the way,
though I haven't really interacted with Mike on this show. This was literally the first time I've been on.
This was the first time you and Mike were on together.
I thought you knew that already.
No, I didn't even think about that. Oh my God. No.
But the behind the scenes work on a show like this is the heartbeat of any podcast or any show or anything like that. I've tried to do this before. I used to have to do a lot of this when I was in college doing radio. I obviously used to have to try to do this when I was trying to run a podcast on my own to begin with. It's putting everything together and making it sound as good as possible is a very time-consuming task. And for Mike to go out there and give up one day out of his week to take all of the stuff that we put together. And again, I go back to the comment from the last little portion to sit there and say, we have nothing really much to talk about. And then it's a 2-hour episode.
2 hours.
To take that and put it all together into the file that we need and then put it onto all the platforms it needs, whether it's Podbean that distributes it to everything else. Do you want me to do this one this time? I'm already at it.
Sure.
Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts. What else do we have?
Spotify,
YouTube, our YouTube channel, obviously, the video.
You forgot sportstalkphilly.com, sir.
Well, no, you said that one. So I'm skipping that one. But I'm talking about all the other normal podcast platforms that are out there. Are we on the other ones too? Are we on like Spreaker or stuff like that?
You mentioned YouTube, right?
Yeah, I said mention YouTube because the video goes out there.
I believe we are on most major podcast stores.
Right. But he puts it all together, gets it out there and gets it ready for the listeners. That is you can't say enough about that task. It's something that needs to get done. It's what gets the show out there. We have to do our part and record the show. And like I said, you drive the show in such great places, give us great relevant topics, all that type of stuff. I try to contribute to that when I can, when I have some ideas other than notes that are on like legit news and breaking down games and stuff like that. That's really what gets it out there and gets it going. And like I said earlier, and I mentioned Dom in this, collectively, it's just giving me a place to talk to diehard hockey fans. You guys just love the game and I love the game. And that's what bonds us all together. It's what makes us talk about it. It's what we get along because we talk about it.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Dom's major contribution to the group is that he's the funny guy in the group chat. And you know what? Every group needs a funny guy in the group chat.
Hey, look, when he was doing that jersey of the day thing for a little while there,
it was funny.
It was funny. It was entertaining as hell. It was great. I loved seeing something.
We needed it in the doldrums of summer, for sure.
And not to mention the times that Dom has come on the show, because this is not his first time that we've been on together. We did the holiday show last year together.
Man, you jumped on with Dom before you jumped on with Mike. Okay.
Yes.
Weird.
I don't blame him.
Producer Mike was
Dom's only been on like 4 times ever.
Producer Mike was a little busy last couple times or the first few times that I jumped on.
He was in the process of having an infant.
Yes. So he was a little busy the first few times I jumped on. So I don't fault him for it. But I really enjoy being on the group text thing too, and just having all that type of stuff. And
you like having hockey friends is what you're saying.
Yeah, of course I do. I mean, well, I literally just said that's what I miss about the actual going to the games is the people that you're associating with most of the times. I can take or leave the scheduling of it, but the people it's always been about the people, and it's been about the connection to the team itself too, to go down and talk to players and stuff like that. And I haven't missed it as much. I missed the scrum aspect of it, of course, because that's I don't think we'll ever take that for granted again if we ever even get it back. But I haven't lost that because I did get on the Zoom calls, and so I didn't lose the connection. It's weird not seeing them physically. I'll give you that.
Totally.
But we've had some pretty awesome times during these last few months. I know for you guys, it's been a long time coming to get to this 100th episode because you started, you took a hiatus, you returned, it was back, and then all of a sudden here we come.
The ultimate Monday news drop, which is a story we've told a couple of times. But
now we've been pretty, regular on this week or bi-weekly for 14 to 15 months.
We've been every other week, and as soon as we get back, it's every week. We're done.
So I say to you guys, here's to 100. here's to the next 100 and beyond. Thanks for making me a part of it, and let's keep going strong.
Well,
right?
Your words are very much appreciated, and honestly, you're as close to as an original member as you can get here too.
I will take that for sure.
As long as we go, you're ground floor.
Yes.
Once we become a multi-million-dollar industry, you'll definitely be an executive vice president.
Look, some of those little things you're teasing on, I told you. I like doing this enough. I'm willing to even to invest into it a little bit, because if I think it can go somewhere, if I think I'm just having fun with it and it makes it better, I'm willing to invest a little.
And we'll see about that as we move along. Dom, before we get out of here, anything you wanted to say about the show, episode 100?
Yeah, I mean, to back up what Kevin said, I hate you and Mike equally. Kevin's the only one that I like. So,
and this is what I mean by he's the funny guy in the group chat.
Because Dom likes it, because as soon as something comes up in the group chat that needs disputing, I come in I drop the bomb on you that is, here's the real answer. And if it is directed at Kyle or Mike, then it instantly feels like a victory for Dom, because
Dom's favorite thing on planet Earth is telling other people they're wrong.
Yes.
And just getting any sort of confirmation where he gets to tell you that you're wrong about that thing you think. Oh, he lives for it. And that's why we love having you on the show. You keep me in check. You keep Mike in check. You and Kevin get along me in check far too well.
Kevin's the only one I like.
I get it.
I understand. So
you all just like me for my press pass.
No, come on.
I'm just kidding. I'm just playing.
It's all those pucks behind you. Well, we're gonna get
the backdrop is great. It's continually evolving.
Absolutely.
I long for the day that we're still doing this show 2 years later. I say 2 years later conservatively. I hope it's less than that, but 2 years later at least. I hope sooner than that I'm not doing this from this little tiny space that I'm working with right now. And I have a much bigger space where I can actually really display some stuff on the back wall for you.
We'll figure something out.
It will then, I will have come full circle at that point. It will then look like Elliot Friedman's office.
Perfect.
On whatever show he's doing at the time when he goes on NHL Network and has all the stuff behind it.
That sounds like a New Year's resolution to me. And you can send us your New Year's resolutions on Twitter at YWT Podcast. You can also find the show on Facebook, Instagram, Podbean, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, sportstalkphilly.com.
There's only one New Year's resolution. It's to watch hockey. So,
and we will certainly be doing that.
I do want to say one more thing before we get out of here, because there's two things I want to. First of all, I think we need to. First of all, we should thank the listeners.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you to the listeners.
But also,
the backbone of the show. You said we were the backbone of the show. The listeners are the backbone of the show.
You guys are the backbone of the operation of the production of it. I just show up and talk for an hour and a half every time, and that's
I just make fun of you guys.
Exactly.
Right. You don't even show up and talk for an hour and a half. You just text us sometimes.
So while we're at it, because we just mentioned, we're going to do the 2-week pause for one more time, and then we should by January we should be coming back with weekly shows. So, being that we won't talk to you at all before then, this is a good time to say happy holidays, Merry Christmas.
That's where
Happy New Year.
Yep.
We'll see you in 2021. We'll have hockey in 21. We pretty much know now. So the show is going to keep getting bigger and better. We hinted at a bunch of stuff. So
we're working
definitely
on
that. I do want to throw out one more quick plug for myself really quick, because if you do want to hear from me at all before the 2 weeks, last year when on 97.3, we did something where we recorded 30-minute podcast-like shows that aired on the station on Christmas Day as a state of the team show. So
nice.
We're doing that again this year, I assume, with all 4 teams. I haven't heard anything station-wide.
Yeah.
But I do know that I am recording that episode with the other guys from the station on Wednesday to do the State of the Flyers show. It's at some point on Wednesday. I don't even know when during the day yet. Okay. I'm going to get a time at some point. But so anything that I've said today could simply be repeated, or we could have more advanced developments in this return to play stuff that I'll have new stuff to talk about. Regardless, that's not what the entire show that day is going to be about anyway. We're going to talk probably more about the look back on 2020, what's to come in 2021, that kind of stuff. I have no idea. Last year, they didn't really do podcasts of their shows at that time. So I don't know if it will air in podcast form, afterwards to be available in podcast form. When everything's done, it will be airing on 97.3 at some point on Christmas Day. As when I do a spot on there, I share the listen live link when I know what time.
Our
when I know what
will
time
definitely be able to
when I
find
know
this
what time
information
it'll
on your
air.
Twitter.
I believe the one last year aired like 12 to 12:30 or 1 to 1:30, something like that. And it was an early afternoon for sure.
Take a look in that time slot.
And so it'll be something like that. And it'll give you something to listen to after all the activity of Christmas morning, that I'm sure is thrilling for everybody and stuff like that. So maybe while you're driving or something, or just sitting around, doing whatever. Like I said, if there's a way to post it in podcast form so you can listen anytime, I'll do that too. And when I know the time, I'll make sure people know, but definitely a good thing to check in with. And then after that, I'm waiting patiently for January 3rd, I guess. Actually, January 3rd. So the day training camp opens, we're going to do a show.
January 3rd. And the return of weekly episodes. But yeah, any more information about that from Kevin, you can follow on his Twitter at Kevin_Durso. When hockey comes back, make sure you're following at Sports Talk Philly and at Flyerdelphia for all your Flyers updates during games. Kevin's at Kevin_Durso. Dom is at Dom Console.
Correct.
DOMCONSOLE.
Correct.
Because that is your actual name, not like your Zoom name here.
Nope.
Mike is at Mike_Gilletto. We are at YWT Podcast. Merry Christmas from me. Happy holidays from all of us. And until the new year, we'll see you.